across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, of course, it is the phone-in. So let me tell you what we're going to be talking about during the talkback hour, and that is religion. That's right. I'm going to be asking you why you are religious or why you're not religious. Why have you forsaken faith? Were you once religious and have decided that it's not for you anymore? I know a lot of people who are ex-Catholics or fallen Catholics or whatever they refer themselves to. But have you had religion and then changed your mind? Are you going through a process of learning about a religion? Are you part of a religion? I'm not. I'm an agnostic atheist, which I'll explain a little bit later on. But I want to know, because the reason I'm talking about this, of course, we've got a new Archbishop of Canterbury, but also there was some idea that Christianity was on the rise in the UK. Certainly we've heard a lot about Christian nationalists in this country, but people were returning to church, but there's been a new study saying that they haven't, that people are not going to church anymore, that people are choosing not to go to church. Do you go to church? What does church give you? What do you get from it? Do you get community from it? Do you get that religion from it? Why are you religious? What is it about religion that I'm missing, perhaps, that you can give me a call and tell me? I find this whole topic really interesting, and although I don't have religion, I don't have a religion, I do find it interesting why other people do have religion. So give me a call on this at 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back, and text the word talk and then your message to 87222. Or maybe you're like me, maybe you've had a look around, you've had a look at religions and you just think, yeah, they're nice. I literally don't have an iota of problem about people with religion. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. So it would be really interesting to hear from both sides of this, actually. Would be really, really interesting. So do give me a call on that. Coming up before that, we have the fabulous Vincent Moss, former political editor. He's going to be here to go through all of the front pages with me for you. Mike Park will be here, who's the CEO of Mountain Rescue England and Wales. I don't know if you've seen that story where those two young lads, 16 and 15, were climbing a mountain in the Lake District, and they found some idiots there wearing trainers, and they had to rescue them. So we're going to be talking about mountain rescue and the type of people that actually now are being rescued on mountains. So if you're planning a mountain hike this weekend, which I don't know why you would be, but if you are, you might want to listen to that. Also, we're going to be talking about the floods, Storm Chandra, as the flood claims a life now, and the pictures are absolutely extraordinary. And I just wanted to let you know that in Devon, Dorset, we haven't forgotten you. Just because we're in London, we haven't forgotten you, and I do want to have a look at what's going on with the floods and to see what kind of support you're getting. Are you getting the help that you need and deserve? So all of that is yet to come, but we have a new Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, almost. I think it's in March where she will actually take up the job. But today she was ordained. She is the first woman. She's the 106th Archbishop of Canterbury, replacing Justin Welby, if you remember, who left in somewhat of shame. But Dame Sarah Mullally has been officially confirmed now as the Archbishop of Canterbury. I mean, this is extraordinary. There hasn't been, it's 1400 years old, this particular church, and I believe that she's the first woman ever ordained as the Archbishop of Canterbury. This is a massive deal. So I wanted to address this, and Dr. Ian Paul joins me now, who's an Anglican minister and member of the General Synod. It is very good to speak to you, Dr. Ian Paul. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Very good to be with you, Petrie.
Good to see you. Now, this is remarkable history-making stuff, right?
Well, it is. Although I have to say, I'd much rather answer the questions you've asked just now about what faith is all about. But perhaps we'd have to talk about Sarah Mullally first. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll ask
I'd love to answer the question.
Well,
No.
Well, you can phone in. Let me know. I will ask you in a moment. But let's talk about the Sarah Mullally, who is an extraordinary woman. I mean, she was a nurse and became the senior nurse in the country, and then gave that up, and now is the senior. I mean, it's extraordinary. She is a remarkable woman.
It is, yes. I don't know her very well, so I can't comment on, personally. We've corresponded a bit and we sort of bump into each other, as you do in the Church of England. It's less remarkable than I think most people realise. I can understand why, particularly for women looking at this, it seems like emotionally a very significant moment. But the Church of England has been in the business of having women in leadership for quite a long time. So women have been ordained as deacons and priests since 1993. Women have been appointed bishops since 2015. You may not realise that the last 10 diocesan bishops appointed, 6 of them were women. So it's slightly less remarkable from the inside.
I mean, it is still remarkable that it was only in 1993 and it was only in 2015, right? I mean, those numbers are still, after 1,400 years. It's taken a long time. I agree with you, and I say that as someone,
I myself have argued for women to be ordained in every order of ministries. So I agree with you. But the reason is that the Church of England has been thinking very hard about it, and I know that most people will make changes very quickly. We've been debating this. We debated the issue of theology of ordination for about 20 years before women were ordained. So because we wanted to make sure we got it right.
Yeah, I've always been kind of a little bit scared. I'm not a religious person, but the teachings of God is that we're all equal, right? I mean that I thought. That we're all supposed to be born equal, and it just
it is.
It just surprises me that some churches will choose their own version of equal.
Well, there's a difference between, Petrie, there's a difference between being equal and being same, isn't there? And I think that one of the things that the problem issue in our culture is we actually find difference very difficult to accept. So on the one hand, we want people to be men and women to be equal in certain roles and occupying the same roles in same numbers, but actually in other roles we were very happy for certain sexes to do one job rather than the other, and in fact men and women choose different things, but they have very different preferences. I think I'd rather than make this the main issue, I think the main issue for the Church under the leadership of Sarah over the next 6 years will be precisely how we engage with and answer exactly the kinds of questions you were asking just before about, does faith make sense? What difference does it make to your life? Is faith intellectually responsible? Does it make a difference existentially to you? Does it make sense emotionally in life today? Because, as a society, we've got huge questions, particularly facing young people, around a whole range of issues, around sexuality, around technology, AI, around the world, the future of the environment. And the most important thing around, Sarah's election now and confirmation as Archbishop is how she's going to lead and equip the Church to engage with those kinds of questions.
Well, because there are those that want to the Church, not just your church, but churches to remain in the past, right? That this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it, and that is very much the messaging from the Catholic Church, right? This is the way it's always been. This is the way it will always be. But times they are changing, as you've said, and Sarah, if I can call her that, I feel a bit cheeky doing that, has said that she is going to...
I call her Sarah.
She is going to... Well, then I will. She's going to take on misogyny head on. And there are lots of other things she's got to do as well, hasn't there? About some bishops, some members of your church refusing to take gay couples, LGBTQ plus couples, and give them a service. That's been talked about. It's been agreed that it will happen. I know that, but it isn't happening with everybody in the church. Will she be able to unify those bishops to do what the church is asking them to do, or will it always be a choice? And if it's a choice, why have an archbishop?
Well, because first of all, the Archbishop is not the CEO of Church of England Inc. she's the first amongst equals amongst the bishops, and bishops are only first amongst equals amongst ministers. I mean, as you said, the teaching of Jesus is that all people are equal. So we don't really actually believe in hierarchy, and I think the way you've depicted it. Here's the second thing, though. On the one hand, you sort of lament some people being in the past. And yet, if we dwell in the present, how well is our present culture answering the existential questions that people have? And I would say the answer is not very well indeed. And in fact, what we're charged to do as followers of Jesus is to proclaim afresh in each generation the ancient truths. And in the end, what we believe is that God revealed himself to humanity in the person of Jesus. One of the letters in the New Testament, the letters of the Hebrews, describes Jesus as God's last word to us. We believe that in the person of Jesus, the fullness of what God wants and the fullness of God's love and the fullness of his transforming power is revealed to us. So, in fact, actually, to be relevant to the world today and to engage with and answer the questions, we need to go back, because we need to be familiar with who Jesus is and what he teaches. I mean, the kind of questions you have, the first thing I'd suggest to you is, hey, pick up a Bible, go back and read a gospel. Read Mark's gospel, because it's the shortest and the simplest one. And what you'll find there is ancient truths from the one who we believe is actually revealed the truth about who God is, the truth about who, therefore, we are, and how we're loved and how we're called to live a new life in his power and his presence.
The issue that I have with the Bible and other religious texts, to be honest with you, is that they were not written by God, they were written by man, not just mankind. Also, they've been rewritten and they've been translated several times. So the word of God that it is meant to be is actually the word of man interpreting the word of God. And that's one of the philosophical issues that I have with reading the text. When I went to a CV school, we read the Bible, blah, 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 all those things. But you know, I do take an issue with that.
Yeah, okay, well, Petrie, I don't know if you know what my day job is. I'm a professional New Testament scholar, and I can tell you from my professional experience and having looked at these things very hard and a lot of academic scrutiny on this, what you actually claim there isn't true. What was written by the first authors has been faithfully transcribed. We know that because we've got thousands and thousands of manuscripts. And yes, different translations. You always have to make a decision when you're translating from one language to another. And that's why when I'm preparing to preach on Sunday, I don't use a translation. I read the Greek text. And when I'm reading the Greek text, I'm reading what those first apostles of Jesus, the eyewitnesses themselves, actually saw. And they write down what he said. And I find actually engaging with Scripture day by day, week by week, absolutely fascinating and eye-opening and transformative, because you are encountering what people have encountered Jesus, God incarnate, walking this earth. And it really is quite a remarkable thing. And that's why I love the thing that God has called me to. I'd love to recommend you some books which can demonstrate the reliability of the New Testament and also people's testimonies about how transforming it is. And that's why a lot of people, I mean, I know my children go to churches in London. We have churches here in Nottingham. And so many people are discovering in this, what's been called the quiet revival, are encountering for themselves.
Although that has been poo-pooed by recent studies, saying there isn't a quiet revival.
Well, that's been challenged by a statistician, David Voas, who himself is working for humanists. So he's hardly an unbiased person. But I mean, if you want to,
neither is the church, to be fair.
Well, I can point you to any. If you live in London, I can point you to a number of churches in London where you can go meet people. You'll find amazing, lively worship. You'll find people with testimonies of lives transformed, and you'll find people who can actually point to you about why Scripture is so engaging and why it's so reliable. So I think there's lots of resources, and it'd be great to have a longer conversation with you about it.
Yeah, I would love to as well.
We moved quite a long way from Sarah Mullally, but see, I think that's what the challenge is for the church. It's not about institutional change. It's not about all these things need sorting out. But at the heart, if there's going to be unity in the Church of England, and if, you know, Sarah Mullally has said this herself, that we are a very divided society, and how can we model a unity?
You see, I would love to talk to you about those people who are claiming to be Christian in America and are behaving in anything but a Christian way. But unfortunately, I don't have time.
I agree.
Let's come back and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah,
about
that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
I'd love to do that as well.
Super.
But it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm not closed-minded to it. I'm just where I am through my life. But Dr. Ian Paul, thank you very much indeed. Anglican minister and member of the General Synod. Well, joining me now is Stephen Evans, we'll just get the other side of the story, who's a Chief Executive Officer at the National Secular Society. Stephen, good to see you as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. many people describe this country as a Christian nation, but the numbers of people going to church have not recovered from the COVID days. I mean, there isn't this quiet revival. Maybe there is. I mean, they've got two sides of the coin there, but the quiet revival is perhaps a little too quiet.
It's very quiet. It's actually non-existent, I think. I mean, church attendance in the UK has been going down now for the best part of a century. Actual Anglican attendance is extremely low. On the average Sunday, less than 1% of the English population worships in a Church of England church. I think monthly attendance is around 2% of the population. So that's a long-term decline that's been happening for over a century. Yes, there have been claims recently of a quiet revival. Most of that came from a Bible Society survey suggesting that church attendance rose from 8% to 12% over a period of about 5 or 6 years, I think. But as you said earlier, those claims have been quite widely contested. The latest pushback on that was from a Pew Research survey. And they really are quite authoritative on this sort of thing. And they say there's no clear evidence of a resurgence. And Church of England, they actually record, and the Catholic Church, record their own attendance figures. And they themselves are not reporting any real upsurge. There has been a bounce back since the COVID pandemic, but that's sort of levelling out now. And it's still not back up to pre-pandemic levels. So all the indicators are that Church of England attendance continues to be in decline. There is more of an assertive Christianity around now from certain quarters. It's been used sometimes as a sort of a marker of national identity. I think we've seen a resurgence.
Yeah, the Christian nationalists that are taking
some
over
Christian
America.
nationalism. We've seen Tommy Robinson wrapping himself around the flag and using sort of Christianity as a bulwark against Islam or Islamism. So I think there's something going on in that space. People using Christianity as a sort of a marker of national identity, but I think that's deeply disturbing as well. So I don't think that's something any of us should welcome, including the Church of England, and to their credit, they're not. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty gloomy picture for Sarah Mullally as she takes over the Church of England. I think what she's mainly suffering with is great indifference from the British public. There's no great anti-religion sentiment in the UK, but there is a lot of indifference to the Church of England. And if you look at the scandals over sexual abuse...
Well, I didn't have time to talk to Dr. Ian about that, but that is one thing that, I mean, the safeguarding issue saw Welby out, right? I mean, that's what got him out. And actually, Dame Sarah doesn't have a good record in that department either. So it would be, it would be beholden to them, really, to sort that out, right? The threat of any, and indeed with the Catholic Church as well.
Absolutely. As I was saying, the sexual abuse scandals, the cover-ups, the failures over safeguarding means the Church has really lost any moral authority it ever had. And yes, you're right, there are questions for Sarah Mullally to answer over her handling of sexual abuse and safeguarding in the when she was Bishop of London. And, the Church's failure to bring in independent safeguarding, I think, has been to its detriment. So I think these issues are going to carry on under Sarah Mullally's watch. And it just takes an eternity for the Church of England to do anything. Yeah. I think she's got a lot in her inbox as she takes over from Justin Welby, who, as you say, resigned in shame over these issues as well. And then there's the question of sexuality and same-sex marriage, which is a deeply divisive issue within the Church itself. But it's another reason why I think the British society has just left the Church behind to have these internal debates and squabbles over issues that the rest of us
have moved on
decided on long ago.
I mean, yeah, the interesting thing for me is that she is a woman, and not because I'm beating that drum, but because I wonder if she was placed in that job because she is a she, and therefore, with the issues of sexual abuse within the Church, it would be seen as a softer landing for them.
Maybe. I'm not sure her record's any better than her male predecessors, so I'm not sure that stands up. I'm sure she's perfectly qualified to do the job. I'm sure a woman can do that job as well as any man could. I'm not sure if it's tokenism that she's been appointed by the Church of England. I'm sure she's perfectly able to do the job, and I hope she is. I hope she can sort out some of these issues around sexual abuse and safeguarding the church's handling of these things. Yeah, I wish her well with that. I just think it should be a matter for the church to sort out. And my position as a secularist is that I just think the church should be separate from the state now. The church should be left to go its own way and sort out these own disputes. And the state should, we should turn into a secular democracy.
No, I completely agree with you on that.
State church.
I know I'm not supposed to really say that, but I've always long advocated for there to be a complete and utter separation of church and state. Otherwise, you see what you're seeing again in America, where there's now prayer meetings and all sorts of things going on in the Oval Office. But why? Is it because we're there will be people listening who think, well, it's because British people, there's too much immigration, or British people don't have any faith anymore and they're all behaving badly. It's just because we're all, narcissistic, horrible people that religion is failing? Or is it religion failing us?
Well, I think, the British public have just disengaged from the Church of England. I think issues like the official position of the Church of England is that gay sex is sinful. They still refuse to, years after we introduced same-sex marriage, the Church of England, the state church, still refuses to carry them out. And they're still arguing over whether they should even bless same-sex couples. So on issues like this, and on assisted dying as well, of course it's a divisive issue at the moment in British society, but most of the public do support moves towards allowing people choice at the end of their life. And yes, it's a complicated issue, but the Church of England, all the bishops who sit as of right in the House of Lords oppose that. And I think that's what the British public don't like. I mean, they're very happy for people to have their religion and practice their religion. What the British public don't like is religion being imposed on them. And with the Church of England being the state church, with its 26 bishops in the House of Lords, with it controlling a quarter of primary schools, the Church of England, a third of all schools are faith schools, and they're using those schools to evangelise to children as well. Sarah Mullally is a real evangelist, so I think it could get worse under her watch. The Church of England seems to think they have some sort of divine right to access children through publicly funded education and preach their message to them. We have laws in the UK requiring a daily act of broadly Christian worship. These are the things that the public don't like, and these are the things that the Church of England serve to uphold.
Yeah, I also don't agree with being taught in a religious school. I think you can be taught religion, but didn't go well in Northern Ireland, did it? Isn't it fascinating to talk to you, Stephen? I'd love to do it again at some point. Stephen Evans there, Chief Executive Officer at the National Secular Society. So where are you on religion? Did you have religion and you no longer have it? Are you not religious, or are you religious and you absolutely stand by your faith? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And then at midnight, of course, we've got Talk Back, and that is your chance to talk back. And I do want to talk to you about religion. I want to know if you are religious. Why aren't you religious? What is it about religion that you have turned your back on? Or never really engaged with? I mean, like me, you probably went to a C of E junior school, right? My school was the C of E. We learnt the Lord's Prayer, all of those things. We were taught about Christianity, and it's not something that I've ever really felt connected to. And since I've grown up, I've looked at other religions, I've read other religious texts, I've read, you know what I'm like, I'm a geek, I get involved in these things and I read a lot. And none of them really appeal to me. And you know, when you consider that there have been 18,000 gods since human beings in human history, 18,000 deities that humans have worshipped. Who knows which is the right one? And that is the question that I always have, is, you know, all those people, you know, where was the God, your God, when all those people were worshipping something else? They didn't even know about your God. And religions come and go. They do. They don't live forever. The oldest, I think the oldest god was 1600 BC to 1046 BC. Itzama, which is another god, was 2600 BC to 900 AD. Nun, 3150 BC to 30 BC. And Anu was 3,500 BC before Christ to 500 years before Christ. So they last thousands of years, and then they disappear, and then they're replaced by another religion. So that is why I question the gods that are here now, because there have been many gods before that people well and truly believed in, worshipped, prayed to. Believed that they were going to save their lives, believed that if they just prayed, everything would be okay, that they took the teachings from those gods, they lived their lives according to those gods. Hinduism, by the way, is the oldest surviving religion. It has lived the longest. So why is Hinduism wrong and Catholicism right? You know, that's my question. That is what puzzles me. So I choose to be an agnostic atheist. I've had a look around. I'm not going, oh no, there isn't a God. I'm just saying, well, an agnostic is someone who can't know, in the same way that you can't know. So we're all agnostic, right? An agnostic is just somebody who knows that they can't know, right? And yeah, I'm just confused by the number of gods that there have been, and why the ones that are currently around today are the right ones, and the ones that were around, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago were the wrong gods. I don't know. Give me a call. I find this topic absolutely fascinating, and I want to hear from you. If you do have faith, if you don't have faith, if you did have faith, what changed your mind, what the difference was. I love this topic, and I don't do it very often because a lot of people get cross with me. So or they offer to pray for me. 0344 499 1000. That's the number you're going to need. And you can text the word talk and your messages or your thoughts to me on 87222.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up, we're still going to be talking about those young lads who rescued some idiots off a mountain. I mean, anyway, we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. And of course, Vincent Moss will be here as well at the top of the hour to go through the papers for tomorrow. But right now, just to prove that we're not London-centric and we do care about you in the rest of the country, Storm Chandra continues to cause havoc and flooding across the UK, bringing more heavy wind and rain. Flood warnings continue to be in place, with as many as 200 currently active. Yellow rain warnings in place across southwest England and Northern Ireland for Thursday, for tomorrow and into Friday, I think until 3 a.m. Friday morning. Well, in parts of Dorset, people have been told to evacuate where there's a severe danger to life. Flood warning has been issued near Bournemouth, and in Somerset, major incident was declared last night with 50 properties hit. And we've just learnt as well that a man died when his lorry went into water. So this is serious stuff. Joining me now to discuss this is Louis Ramirez, co-director of Flooded People UK, campaigning to make communities safe from flooding. It's good to meet you, Louis. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. The pictures are absolutely horrific. What is actually going on?
What's going on is that we've had this massive storm, Storm Chandra, that the Met Office named, that just basically slammed into the southwest. And a lot of the ground was already saturated, so there wasn't a huge amount of places for the water to go. What you can see on screen is that you've had wind as well. And in some places, like Catesbridge and County Down, they had their wettest day ever. Basically more rain than would normally fall in January fell in a single day. And that just fell on rivers that couldn't cope, and so they burst their bank. And one of the things that you can't really see on the pictures is the smell, because what we're seeing is a lot of reports where the water got mixed up in sewers, and the sewers ended up in people's homes. And that makes it even worse. So the situation's, as far as I can tell, the water's subsiding. But like you said, you've got more rain coming along, so they may not be out of the woods quite yet.
I mean, is this seen as an unusual, unstoppable event that nobody could have foreseen? Or is this the Environment Agency not doing enough to protect areas that have flooded before?
I think it's a bit of both. I definitely agree with you that the Environment Agency, and really it's the government who are in charge of the Environment Agency, and successive governments just don't do enough. And they only tend to do a tiny bit after a storm and then forget about it. So we've got inadequate defenses, and then we've got these storms that can be foreseen to a certain degree, but I think this is the sixth one that we've had this season. And so, like I said, the rain is more and more. So we're on this kind of upward trend. And these two forces are colliding in a way that's got really, really serious consequences for all types of parts of the country and the economy.
I mean, at the moment, and this always happens, doesn't it? These pictures are very dramatic. They make good news pictures. They're good television. People get interviewed. They're good stories. They're heartbreaking stories. But then we all move on, and these people are left with the devastation. What happens at that point? Because that never gets covered.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. So the average time, as I understand it, in England to be out of your house once it's flooded is 9 months. But I've known people who are out for 18 months because basically your house just soaks in all that water. It gets really damp. And so we call that process recovery. But you're right that it's really, really lonely, because the blue lights leave and the cameras leave, but then you're still left with all the trauma. And I know a lot of people who just have this terrible anxiety and they're glued to their phone. They can't even leave their houses sometimes. So that's some of the stuff that we're trying to help with a bit, because just being connected to someone who's had a similar experience can really make a difference. So this is where we pick up, and we're trying to get more resource in. I just saw a video of a man who said he woke up Monday morning to brown water up to waist height, and then the camera pans and it's his dog up the stairs. So you can imagine how heartbreaking that is.
Oh my gosh.
Confusion. And then the long wait begins, and the insurers begin, and all of that really long process to get your life back on your feet. And what's really important is that as the storms become more and more frequent, then there's the fear that it might happen again. So what's really important, if I have one thing to say, is that this shouldn't happen to people twice. If it's happened once,
Yes.
you deserve some peace after that. Because if you're living in fear that it's going to happen again, that becomes, it's just a meat grinder for your stress, and you're never safe again in your home, and that's just not right for people.
I mean, that's the other thing, isn't it? It has a knock-on effect with getting insured. I mean, I know you can use Reshore, is it? That you know, if you've been flooded, you can get special government-backed flooding cover. But there's the resale value of your property. There's all of those things. You know, have you ever been flooded? Yes. And people go, oh well, there's enough houses on the market, I won't bother with yours then. You know, there's a lot of talk about people, you know, buying properties perhaps on floodplains. They didn't know they were floodplains. You know, all of these things have such a psychological impact on owners, knowing now that their house is worth less than it was.
Yeah, Petrie, I mean, you're right, and you're really hitting the nail on the head, which is that the loss of house price values is what takes this from this really sad issue that happens to too many people, but a comparatively small number, and risks making it a really economy-wide spread issue as the risk gets driven up by things like climate change, by really bad building practices, by water companies not doing their homework, by successive neglect. At that particular point, the problem that I'm really worried about is that your houses that were sold at this level then might be worth that level. And then that has really wide effects because there's so much money in the houses, as you know, people's pensions are wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
So if you have a sudden shock as people's perception of the risk changes, or as entire parts just lose insurability, I know people who can't sell their houses and know that these houses are going to get flooded again.
Yeah.
Imagine that. There's people that I know where the government is in talks about buying them, but they're not putting enough money to buy all of them. And then there's the coastal places. So I think that this is the really, really big concern, which takes it from a localized, if growing, humanitarian catastrophe, where you've got, I know terrible anecdotes, I could talk your head off about them, RAF pilots from the war who's died alone and said the hardest thing was flooding. You know, just this indignity. But then it becomes a potential economic catastrophe that we're sleepwalking into when it comes to the house prices. And that's why it's really so important to, you know, have shows like you welcome us on this, which we're really grateful for, and to start raising the awareness that we need a bit more attention to that, even as there's so many different problems going on.
Yeah, I'm just always aware how fickle the news cycle is, and we leave people behind who have got to deal with the devastation, and they feel, like you said, incredibly lonely from that. The thing is, as you said, we can expect to see more of this and over wider areas of the country. We're certainly seeing an increase in the number of these catastrophic storms coming through. So it is beholden on all of us to be aware of where we live and what we could do if there was a flood, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's got to be all of society. But as we do that, we should never really fall into the trap. What often happens that I'm worried about is that what you've got is communities and volunteers doing so much work and then being patted on the back and left behind. So it's just, I think that if I see a pensioner who has to wake up at 5 a.m. to check their rain gauge and pump, on the one hand, I appreciate the amazing calm that, you know, British people are capable of under crisis. But do I want to be celebrating a pensioner doing that? They should be retiring and getting that rest. So yes, we need awareness. Yes, we need community groups, but we really, really need them to be met by, you know, no one can do that work like the government can. Ultimately, it's just one tiny community up against the sea or the weather. So we're seeing some positive changes in communities, and I hope that the government can just meet these changes halfway as it goes along.
You mentioned also the water companies who have a huge responsibility for cleaning the is it called a gullet? No, I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, that's on the side of the roads, and cleaning the drains and making sure that they pump out, you know, waste, and they do those things. Well, we know that the water companies, particularly my water company, which is the biggest in the country, Thames Water, have absolutely neglected doing a lot of the work that would protect us if there was another flood. I mean, I think it was 10 years ago there was a massive flood in London, and it destroyed a lot of places around me. Actually, were completely flooded up to the ceiling. The basement flats were completely done for, and yet Thames Water just, the water companies. I'm not just going to single out Thames Water. They still seem to be neglecting their part in what is happening here because it's expensive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, again, it's expensive, and it's always easier for the individual to pick up the tab than for a company that's got more means. So in Cornwall, in this particular instance, in a small village, I think it was Southwest Water, it was on the news covered by ITV, they had already a problem of the sewer going into the streets, but then this time it entered people's homes. And I don't think people realize how frequent this is. So we're working on investigating and turning up numbers, but very oftentimes, because we have sewers that carry away the rain, it's called a combined sewer system, when they get overwhelmed, they end up in people's homes. And flooding is really bad, but flooding with sewer is a whole other level above that will really upend your life. So,
and there are quite simple fixes, aren't there? Like non-return valves, for example. If you haven't got one, get one. Even if you're on the second floor, because if the ground floor floods, it will push up all the sewage to where you are. So non-return valves. Somebody said to me to keep a balloon in the bathroom, because if the toilet starts to fill, you just blow up a balloon and put that in the toilet, and that will prevent most of the water coming back up through the toilet. So there are things that we don't need to be dramatic about it, but just check and see if you've got a non-return valve for basic.
Yeah, I agree. So it's never a good idea to panic. I think that there's just no situation. The worst thing you could do is panic. Maybe the second worst thing you could do is pretend it's not real.
Yeah.
So for sure, there's nothing worse than the content of the sewers ending up in your house. That's so whatever you can do. I was talking to my colleagues who are brilliant and really experienced. If it gets to that point, grab a duvet, block it. For the love of God, do not let that stuff get in your health. It's a health hazard. It's just, imagine.
And then the cleaning up process is way harder.
The smell never, your house will never feel the same again. So there are these things. Do get a non-return valve. I would, if I were you. But then once that's done, there are other ways, tragically, for the sewer to enter your house than just through the toilets. And that's why we also need the water companies to step up. They do on occasion, they don't on others. We can get into the details, but I think that anyone can agree, and I quote this amazing woman who's been fighting this for 25 years no, she's not in Essex, she's just south of London. Having sewer in your house in a country as rich as the UK is Dickensian. It is not acceptable. We should not be allowing it to happen, and we should be paying the right compensation when it does happen. And the data I've got says that is not usually the case.
That's the thing. If it does happen, it is the fault of the water company, and you should be compensated for that. Fascinating talking to you, Louis. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Louis Ramirez, their co-director of Flooded People UK. And if you are suffering with a flood in the southwest of England, I'm so sorry that's happened to you, and I wish you well, and we won't forget you. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight, just a reminder, the wonderful Vincent Moss will be here in the studio to go through the papers for tomorrow for you. But if you had been looking at the papers today, there's been an absolutely fabulous story. And I do like good news. There's not much of it around, is there really? But today the Times reports on how two savvy teenage boys in the Lake District have come to the rescue when a group of adults, idiots, I'm going to say, got stuck on a snowy ridge. The group were clearly unprepared for the difficult hike and were wearing trainers and jeans. Luckily, the teenagers had the necessary gear as they were descending from the summit to Striding Edge, a jagged stretch of rock with sheer drops where many lives have ended. These kids, they were 15 and 16 years old. 15 and 16 really had their heads screwed on properly. This is one of the many incidents involving rescuers on Cumbria's mountains. Last year, a survey said that they'd noticed an increase in unprepared mountain tourists, often under the age of 24, get this, incited by social media to hunt for the perfect photo opportunity. Mountain Rescue England and Wales said call-outs had risen by nearly a quarter in the last 5 years, and the under-24s were the most likely to need help. Before that, it was the 50 to 55-year-olds who probably overestimated their prowess. Well, joining us now to discuss this story and why you should be much more careful if you're planning this weekend to go and climb a mountain, Mike Park joins me now, CEO of Mountain Rescue England and Wales. Really good to have your company, Mike. What an amazing story this is, and for those young men to have been so clear-headed and so, I mean, I'm going to sound patronising, but so grown up.
Yeah, good evening, Petrie. I've read this story today, and I've got to say I am extremely impressed in how these two guys have really behaved and demonstrated that some common sense and knowledge goes a long way.
I mean, they are mountain rescuers of the future, surely. You're going to be recruiting those boys.
Oh, certainly, definitely. I'd like to meet them. I believe that while this was going on, the local team, Patterdale, were busy rescuing somebody off the ridge just along. So they were busy working with two helicopters, carrying out a pretty difficult call out at the time. So they heard about it, and they invited the two boys down to the base. And from what I hear, definitely future mountain rescue.
I mean, incredible. And it's so nice. I mean, it's so nice to hear a good news story, especially involving young men. We don't hear it very much, and we don't cover it very much in the news, because even if it is good news, it's like there's too much bad stuff. But what I found absolutely extraordinary is that these fully grown adults climb up a mountain. It's the third highest ridge in Britain, is it?
Yeah, it's on the third highest mountain in the lake.
Okay, so it's not a casual walk in the park, right, with your dog, or they had a dog. So, and they go up in trainers and jeans on a day that it was already either snowing, or if they checked the weather report, it would have told them that it was snow. I mean, do you see this kind of stupidity often?
We see a bunch of people that are not thinking as well as as we've seen in the past.
You're very diplomatic, much more so than I am. I know I can say it and you can't. But, you know, does it make you scratch your head and think, what were you thinking?
It certainly does, and it certainly does to many people within Mountain Rescue. Our role is to go out and basically bring people that have got themselves into an unfortunate position off the hill. But at the end of the day, we're just mountaineers. We're just hill walkers, like the people we're rescuing. And yeah, it's it does cause us concern to see all people need to do is some simple things to actually make sure that the adventure that they're having in the mountains, and we're all encouraging people to go out and enjoy the great outdoors. It's great for your physical health. It's great for your mental well-being. But the big plus to this is to actually come back down off the mountain so that you can go and do it again. That's what it's all about. So there's a few simple things that we encourage people to do before they go out, is to ask yourself 3 questions. First one is, am I confident and have I the knowledge and skills for the day? Number 2, do I know what the weather will be like? And number 3, do I have the right gear? And if you can answer all them 3 questions and need to answer all of them 3 questions, then great. Have yourself a great day, and hopefully we will never meet on the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, you must want to not meet these people, because it's dangerous for you guys as well. It's extraordinary what you do, by the way. I'm very much appreciative, although you won't catch me climbing a mountain any day soon. But nonetheless, it is the other thing that people tend to do, I was reading, is that they rely on their phones to be their sat-nav. They don't take a map. They don't take a paper, you know, an actual map with them. So often, you know, they'll get up a mountain, but they can't remember the way back down, or they find themselves at a dangerous spot.
Yeah, and this is the thing about mapping and using a phone app. First problem that happens with the phone is that the battery runs out.
Yeah.
Certainly runs out in conditions like we have at the moment, because it's colder and obviously they're running down faster. It's not a map. It's a means to navigate in most cases in an urban setting, or to drive down the road. It's not giving you the detail that you find in a traditional map.
Like the steepness of something, or the
and the scale of what we need to read from a map, etc., etc. So there's that part of that knowledge and skills, and I guess and to get that knowledge and skills, there's lots of ways to do that, as in youth groups. There's professional mountaineers and guides out there that can teach these skills, and there is stuff you can read on the internet, and there's the friends and all the rest of it to go out and have the day. What we're seeing is, because of social media, there's an encouragement to go to the more adventurous places or the more dangerous places, and we must get there immediately. It's taken people like me years to learn the skills, to get myself into some of the places that are being encouraged at the moment. So, and this is literally why we're seeing accidents. But I know from ourselves, we've seen a rise in that age demographic of the 18 to 25-year-olds. They are last year and the year before, we were seeing that was the age demographic we were going out to rescue. We're not here to lecture. We're here to encourage people to enjoy the outdoors. But what we're suggesting is just learn the skills before you set out, because the mountains will be there tomorrow. If it's bad weather today, don't go up at night.
I mean, does somebody alert mountain rescue, by the way? I mean, say, got a bunch of influencers going up the mountain, somebody falls and breaks an ankle or something, and they don't know how to get back down. How do they get in touch with you?
So, it's dial 999, ask for the police, and ask for dial 999, ask for the police, ask for mountain rescue. And
how do you find them? I mean, mountains are big, right? I mean, well, I'm stuck on the mountain. Where are you? I don't know. What's around you? Green stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where the mobile phones do come in handy, because we have the ability now to, as long as we've got a signal, to send a text to the person that's lost on the hill, even though they might not know where they are. That text opens up opens up the navigation system on the phone, tells the person where they are, but more importantly, tells us back in the control room exactly where the location is. So although we're suggesting that mobile phones, yes, there is apps to help you navigate on the hill, but please have a paper map or a map in your rucksack in case. But yes, it is important. We need that. We need you to have that mobile phone, because it means that from our point of view, we're getting alerted faster, and we're also able to find out where you are faster as well. So it means that from my perspective, 10 years ago, mountain rest call-outs were taking 5 to 6 hours on average. Now we can be there with people within that critical hour that you hear a lot with regards to the medical people. So that's why we're carrying a lot more medical equipment on the hill now.
Well, I think you're amazing, all of you, and the fact that you choose to do it to save people who have been dumb, I think is incredible. Thank you so much for joining me, Mike. That was fascinating. Mike Park, CEO of Mountain Rescue England and Wales. Don't be an idiot. Just check before you go. You're putting other people's lives in danger if you don't. Anyway, stay where you are, because coming up, Vincent Moss will be in the studio to go through the papers for tomorrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, good evening. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And of course, at midnight, that's in an hour's time, it is your chance to talk back. It is a full hour dedicated to just your calls. There's nothing else. There's no guests. There's nothing in there. Just you and me. And what we're chatting about now is the one thing, well, two things, isn't it, you must never talk about at a dinner party. Politics and religion. Well, I'm about to talk about both. So I've got a former political editor in the studio. So we're going to talk about both. So don't invite us to a dinner party. But religion is what I want to talk to you about at midnight. Because there's a new archbishop was ordained today. It was a fascinating, I don't know if you watched it, I did. I thought it was really, really interesting at St. Paul's. They sort of turned it into a sort of cross between a court with lawyers there and a church. It was a very interesting process I'd never seen being done before. And so I was quite interested as to the legal aspect of it and the lawyers and all of that, and that they had their wigs on and everything. It was quite an extraordinary sight. And then, of course, the new female archbishop, first one in 1400 years. And the 106th archbishop. You know, she's got a big job to do. There's a lot of issues around the church. But I wanted to move on from that and reveal a report. These reports of a faith resurgence, what did the bishop call it? Quiet resurgence, I think he referred to it as, of religion in this country, of Christianity in this country, is misleading. And this is according to global analysts who point out data showing a continuing decline in religion in this country, particularly looking at Christianity and at Catholicism. Claims that there is a Christian resurgence in Britain have been shot down by global analysts who've poured cold water on surveys that feed a misleading narrative. Church leaders around the UK have hailed the prospect of this quiet revival in Christian faith, particularly amongst young people. They've been buoyed by surveys suggesting that Gen Z are more open to spirituality and more likely to be churchgoers than older generations. There is scepticism around the claims, however, from experts who point to the fact that church attendances across the major denominations have failed to recover fully from their pandemic slump. This is the Pew Research Centre, and they are actually pretty good. They've been doing this research for years, and they're saying that there isn't a resurgence. There really isn't one. So I want to know, why aren't you religious? Simple as that, really. If you have a religion, I want to know why you are religious. Do you have faith? Do you have a faith? What is your faith? And do you... also, I want to know, relapsed Catholics, that's the term I was thinking of earlier. I know a lot of relapsed Catholics, and they always declare themselves to be relapsed Catholics as well. It's like being a vegan, I think it's a thing of honour, a badge of honour. But, you know, if you did have a religion and you've come out of that religion, why? What was it that you didn't find there that you thought you might find there? And listen, if you have a religion or a faith, I'm really happy for you. I'm not somebody who goes, oh, you know, what you believe in. It's absolutely brilliant. Good for you. I don't. I just don't. And I've looked and I've read, and I'm not closed-minded. It just doesn't do anything for me. It's not something that I feel I need or want in my life. I don't think it makes me a bad person. In the past, when I've done this phone-in, I've had people telling me that I'm going to go to hell, which I think is a bit mean of God. Mind you, lots of the commandments are about him, aren't they? But, you know, I think that's a bit mean, since I'm a pretty good person, actually. I've never coveted somebody else's ox. I've never murdered anybody. I've never, you know, I'm a pretty good person. So why would God not let me into heaven? Just because I didn't believe in him? But he created me. And therefore, if he created me not to believe in him, right? But then you get around that by saying, no, there's free will. But then he created free will. If you're a religious person, he created everything, right? So if God created free will and he gave me the free will not to believe in him, why would he then deny me into heaven? Why would he send me into hell? So these are all the questions why I'm not really buying it, that I don't really, you know. I mean, I do philosophise about it. I talk about it with people, and you know, all those questions always spin around in my mind. And also, if there is a God, what are you doing, mate? You know, you've got plenty of time to create havoc on earth, haven't you? But not a lot to create peace. Oh, but that's free will. Yeah, but he created free will. Do you see what I mean? I go round and round in circles with it. So I don't have a religion. But I'm fascinated by people who do, genuinely. Not in a patronising way. I'm genuinely interested as to what it is you get from your faith, or what you get from your church, or what it is that you believe it can do for you. Because those are questions I can't answer, because I'm on the other side of that. So that's what I want to talk about. Not a small conversation, but let's have that conversation at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message or your thoughts or your prayers to 87222. Put the word talk up front. So that's what we're talking about during Talk Back. With me now to discuss this and the front pages is Vincent Moss, former political editor.
Hi, Petrie.
Hello there. Politics and religion, two things we should never talk about. That's all we talk about. So let's talk about religion for a moment. People are turning their back on the church, it seems. Has the church let them down, or are people letting the church down?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think the numbers are still down, as most of the surveys seem to suggest. But I think what is interesting, I see, especially around near me in South London, a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of younger people now seem to be going to church. And that seems to be a group where, anecdotally, I get the sense that young people, perhaps who are unable to follow traditional paths because haven't got the money to buy a flat or a house like people used to in the old days. Work is a lot more precarious. The world is looking a lot more of an uncertain place. And there seems to be a bit of a take-up among younger people. But there is a kind of continual decline in church going, and it can't be helped by these sort of litany of scandals that we've seen in recent years, particularly over safeguarding and abuse allegations that sort of dogged the Church of England, and they just seem to have got...
And the Catholic Church.
Absolutely, of course, and probably other churches too, and they just got worse and worse, and I think that's caused people to lose quite a bit of faith in going to church as well. Yeah,
I mean, it is difficult, isn't it, when the institution that you turn to for guidance is behaving in a way that they would tell you not to behave. And that's something that I abhor, is hypocrisy from anybody. Can't bear it. So again, that is something that has led me to being, agnostic atheist. I just can't. I just don't buy it. There's too much about it that doesn't fit for me. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, exactly, and there's no proof. I mean, the closest I ever got as a young person is school wasn't particularly religious, but my parents did send us to Sunday school, me and my brother.
I went to Sunday school.
But I suspect that was as much to get us out of the house
than it was to get us out of the house,
than any sort of committed sort of belief in it. And I think if your school isn't particularly religious and your parents aren't particularly religious and your sort of peer group isn't, then you tend to kind of grow up not being particularly religious, and unless you don't have to make a sort of move to change that, and I never really did that. Whereas if you've gone to a particularly religious school, as many people do, or your parents and your family had always insisted on going to church, that probably would have formed your habit. It becomes a habit, doesn't it, really? And if you don't get the habit, I think it's harder and harder to sort of want to seek to take that up, unless you have some people have a life-changing experience, don't they? So near-death experience, and then they turn to religion, or something goes wrong in their lives, they might turn to religion. But if you've had a fairly sort of even path, if you like, through life, then and nothing causes you to seek religion, then it doesn't come your way, perhaps. But I do think young people increasingly are turning towards religion. Now, that may not be borne out in the statistics, but I get a sense that a lot of young people are sort of looking to find answers in other places. They're less material in many ways, and religion may be one of the answers for them. Yeah,
it is interesting, isn't it? But again, I have felt that having a very strong faith is almost an abdication of self. That that I don't feel I need that guidance because I know what's right and what's wrong. Morally, I'm a very moral person. I wouldn't wittingly hurt anybody or anything. I even taught myself to catch spiders to put them outside. Right? I hate them. But it is, that is another thing that I don't understand about religion, is that you get these set of rules, and I've spoken to a lot of religious people who said to me, well, that comes from Jesus, and I said, well, I'm not I believe that most people would know that killing somebody is wrong. I don't need to be told that is the wrong thing to do. And I do wonder, especially with Catholicism, whether it's an abdication of self, of self-reliance, of saying, well, this is what I think, and I've had to work out what's right and what's wrong, and society teaches us what's right and what's wrong. I don't think you need religion to be a moral or a good person, although many religious people do link it, and they say, well, that person's a scumbag because they're not religious. It's like, no, they're a scumbag because they're a scumbag, right? You can equally be a good person if you don't have religion.
Exactly. I mean, you can still live by what many people would call Christian values, and many people do, which is don't steal and don't do bad things and be nice to other people, without actually being religious. And I'd like to think, hopefully, most of the time I try and do that as well. You're not out there robbing and breaking the 10 Commandments as religious people would see it. You're broadly living by Christian values, for want of a better phrase, and that you don't need to be a Christian or of any religion to do that. You just live by being a good person. And at the end of the day, and I know this always causes controversy when you say it, which we're reluctant to say in some ways, but look, at religion has caused more death and more wars and more sort of heartbreak, really, than anything else. And you sometimes
throughout
wonder,
history, exactly, the Crusades, everything, religion has been,
and even to this day, people are dying in the name of religion, and so religion, many good things about it, but also has been responsible for an awful lot of misery.
And this is, I'm sort of in the Ricky Gervais school of religion, and I saw an interview with him a little while ago where he said, I bet you that I only believe in one less God than you do. And I love that line, because there have been 18,000 gods through human history. And you believe in your God, your Christian God, your Christian readings or whatever. And another religion will believe in another form of that God, or a different God altogether. And then you've got Hindus, you've got all of these different things. What makes your God the right God? And even so, you don't believe in all of the rest of them. You don't believe in the other 18,000 or the ones that are around today. And I only believe in one less than you. So that is a really strong argument, I think, as well, because people believe in different things, right?
Exactly, and people use their faith sometimes as an excuse to kill people of other faiths.
Yeah,
which would seem to be
mad, right? And this is what I can't stand about the rise in Christian nationalism that we're seeing across the United States, and here actually, but more so in the US. It is this lack of humanity that goes with their so-called religion. There's no humanity in there. In fact, empathy is supposed to be a weakness in the new America, you know, and it seems that their God, their Bible, and especially in the Bible Belt in America, is about hurting other people as long as it doesn't hurt me. Well, that's not a Christian philosophy that I've ever read or would even want to live by myself, and I'm not religious. That's the other thing that I don't get, is people who use their religion to hate other people.
Yes, exactly, because they're not...
Like gay people.
Yes.
Oh, you know, you mustn't, you know, it says in Leviticus, man must not lie down with man. It also says don't wear mixed materials or eat shellfish.
Well,
but you're not paying attention to that one. You're reading what you want to read. It's like the extremists in Islam. They're not reading the Quran. They're not reading all of it. They're not reading all the attached books that go with it, which are many, may take you years to get through them all. They're picking some paragraphs and applying them in the same way that Christians do.
Yes.
So they're picking out the ones that suit their anger and their lack of religion, the same as these fundamentalist
Exactly,
Christians.
which most religions do in some form or other.
There's always something nasty in there.
Yes, the parts that they want to emphasise, and then using that as a justification to carry out all sorts of potentially atrocities or do all sorts of things.
Exactly, and Christians do that as much as these fundamentalist Islamists, right? It's a lack of religion, if anything else, that they're just choosing the paragraphs that suit their anger or suit their doctrine or suit their whatever it is they want it to suit. You know, with homosexuality, it just suits their homophobia. Oh, well, I wouldn't be homophobic, but God told me I am. That's not true, because God said apparently that we're all equal.
Yes.
So that means all of us are equal. Even those of us who don't choose a religion are equal, right?
But as you say, people choose different parts of the Bible or other scriptures
to justify
their own particular mindset, their particular worldview.
It's absolutely extraordinary. But I'm so interested, though, in people who do have faith and why. So it was always, it's like I said, it's always a difficult conversation to have with people.
Well, not least because you can't actually, and people will probably say I'm wrong about this, but you can't prove definitively the case one way or the other. No. So people will always have.
And they'll always say to us, "Well, you can't prove there isn't." And you go, "Well, you can't prove the negative anyway."
Yeah.
It's impossible to prove the negative. It is not. You're not possible to do it unless there's a surrounding something around the negative, and you can see the shape of it.
Well, exactly.
That's the only way.
Everybody could be right, or everybody could be wrong.
Well, that's what makes you an agnostic.
Yep.
An agnostic is somebody who says, "We can't know. You can't know, and I can't know. Let's agree on that." But it's the people who say they know that I find interesting, without proof.
And there's quite a lot of those.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I suppose because we're journalists, we've always dealt in knowing, not in believing a story to be true, but making sure that it's true. And maybe that's a different way our brains work. Maybe. Right, Vincent and I have got to take a break, but that is the conversation at midnight. Please do give me a call. I'm fascinated to talk to you about this. 0344 499 1000. Quick break. Back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're looking at the papers for you for tomorrow. The Sun for tomorrow. Let be the greatest miscarriage of justice this century. Every time I read these people saying that, I always feel for the families of those children that died, because if she isn't guilty, somebody else is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just one baby. I mean, at the end of the day, Lucy Letby is serving 15 whole life sentences for murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill 7 others. So, long trial, as we all remember. But The Sun, as many papers do, keeps referring back to the Letby story because people are still fascinated by it in the same way they were by the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. It's a very popular story because there is that question mark of maybe she didn't do it, which some people think. And The Sun have spoken to a policeman who didn't investigate the Lucy Letby case, but investigated the case of the serial killer Beverly Allitt. And he says that he's been looking at the evidence, this retired Detective Superintendent Stuart Clifton. He's reviewed the evidence and he thinks this is likely the greatest miscarriage of justice this century. Quite a headline grabbing, which is the point, view, but there'll be others who disagree. And as you say, thoughts are always with the families who lost their
who thought that they'd
children.
got some justice for those deaths. I mean, I wonder if it's because it's a young blonde woman, you know, I don't know.
Well, you have to wonder if it was an old 50-year-old man, whether there would be quite the outcry.
Yeah.
But it is a sort of reflection of the sort of head of steam that's building up for a potential retrial, which, you know, you do see increasing amounts of stories about it, lots of podcasts about it, and that just sort of ratchets up the pressure on a potential retrial.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, to be honest, but I do think that when these stories are put out, you know, I hate the thought of one of the parents going into the paper shop tomorrow and seeing that, and that's the first they know about it. You know, I hope that they are communicating with the families and saying, look, we're putting this story out, you know, just so you know, so you're not shocked by it, because people always forget the families
Absolutely.
of the victims.
You'd hope so, and it's a painful reminder every time they see it on the front page of the newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, awful. And also, you're sitting there going, well, if it is the wrong person, then who did it to my kid, right? Let's have a look at the Times now. Make no deals with China until Jimmy Lai is freed. His son has urged the UK. Britain must not normalise relations with China unless Jimmy Lai is freed. Sir Keir Starmer hailed the huge opportunities to business of re-engaging with Beijing. Sebastian Lai, who's his son, said the release of his father, a British citizen and newspaper owner who's facing life in prison in Hong Kong for sedition, would be a key test for Starmer's reset with China. And we've been asking for this man to be released for a long time.
Yeah, and it's a really important case, and he's I think he's being held for an incredibly long time, and there's huge pressure to release him, and it's just one of the many human rights cases that the Prime Minister's under pressure to raise in talks with the Chinese. I mean, he's the first British PM over there for 8 years since Theresa May. And I'm sure in some form that after this trip they will say that the Prime Minister did sort of maybe mention human rights cases, maybe he might mention this one. But at the end of the day, the real purpose of the trip is about 300,000 UK jobs that depend on China. They're the second biggest economic power in the world now, behind America. And Keir Starmer's hoping that with all these business leaders with him, they'll get some business deals out of it, and he'll be able to announce some stuff.
We can't sell our soul to the devil for I mean, this is what it looks like. It looks like, look, I know we can't ignore China, right? We can't, especially with our relations with America at the moment, and the way that America's heading. I mean, there's more stories about the dollar today. I mean, it is a disaster. The dollar is falling like a stone, and Donald Trump said, no, it's fine. And economists are going, oh my God, he said it's fine. And that causes it to drop further. More and more countries buying into the yuan and gold. The price of silver going up exponentially. Everybody's sort of ducking out of the dollar at the moment because they don't know what's going to happen next in the US. So China's becoming much more important to the world in that regard, and it looks like the adult in the room. But there's a lot wrong with dealing with China. First of all, they've been spying on us. That's not going to stop. Second of all, they've been funding Russia against Ukraine. If Russia hadn't had that money, that war would have ended within about 18 months. It would have been gone if China hadn't supported Russia. He can't both be friends with Ukraine and China, because that geopolitically doesn't make sense. Then you've got Jimmy Lai. Then you've got Taiwan.
And
I mean,
loads of other,
many issues.
Absolutely, and the Uyghurs and loads of other human rights cases, the spying. Anything I would say is none of these things are going to stop if he hadn't gone to China. True. And we do need to trade with lots of places where we have to slightly hold our nose and get on with business. So I don't necessarily. There's a lots of things that everybody disagrees with China, and its timing could be better, arguably, but I think not. The amount we rely on China for so much in terms of what comes in is really scary, and if America's moving away from us, then we're going to be needing to look elsewhere, and there's a lot of arguments for, I think it's 360,000 UK jobs are linked to the Chinese economy, so there's a lot to be said for trying to make deals with it, but then there's also a lot of our Conservatives in particular very unhappy with the timing of the trip.
But I think he is right in that there is soft power that can be played with human rights. We've seen that in other places. Whether Xi is up for listening, I don't know. But it certainly would be a massive deal to get Jimmy Lai freed. That would encourage me that China can change.
Exactly. And quite often with these visits, there's lots of talks beforehand for months and months and months, and there's lots of things from the business deals to some of the human rights stuff is agreed, and we've seen this occasionally with some of the behind the scenes talks with hostages held in other countries and things. you never know.
It's better to be
Everybody
inside, isn't it?
Exactly. Better to be having the conversation, and there's probably a greater chance that he might be freed than having no engagement at all, and I would have thought there's a much lower chance that he'd be freed. So I would have thought, as in all circumstances with diplomacy, the fact that talks are underway, the fact that he's over there, China will like the fact he's over there, and they will be making their own political capital out of it. So that probably ultimately helps the Jimmy Lai case, you would hope.
You would hope. And it's a big deal that Xi is actually, because normally he'll throw senior people at people he's not bothered with.
Yes.
So it's a big deal that he's getting to see Xi.
Yeah.
How much he'll talk to Xi, or how many he'll pass that on to somebody else. But it's still it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Looking at another big deal, Iran has its fingers on the trigger in face of US threats. Now, we know that Donald Trump said, you keep fighting and I'm on my way to help you, which he didn't do, and I knew he wouldn't do. But he has since sent an armada to the shores, to the area, to the region of Iran, and that is a threat. That is definitely a threat. But there will be a lot in the Middle East who are saying, just don't do it, Donnie. This is stupid.
Well, it's incredibly high risk, and who knows what will happen at the end of the day. Although the June attacks saw a lot of the nuclear capacity of Iran, we think, wiped out, it's still a nuclear power at the end of the day.
I've read lots of reports saying that he didn't.
Exactly. Maybe he didn't. And let's remember that the start of sending this support over there was to help all those people protesting on the streets. Rumours are 20,000 or maybe more.
43,000
43,000 who've been killed by the regime there and didn't get there in time to do anything about that. And he now seems to be shifting the narrative to making it more about the nuclear weapons again and less about the protesters. So again, Trump is sort of changing his tack all of the time. But there's no doubt there's a massive ratcheting up of the military presence, not with just that huge aircraft carrier, the Lincoln, that's heading over there, but also the military personnel at all the air bases that America's got and military bases ringing Iran. So it feels like he's preparing for something, but as ever with the President of the United States, we're never quite sure what's going to happen.
But I mean, I just, when this was first mooted that he would strike Iran to help the protesters, I was like, well, where's he going to strike? What is he going to strike? There's nothing he can strike, right? You know, if he strikes a military base, then a lot of those are actually embedded in towns and cities. Then you're going to take out the very people you're there to protect. If you strike outside of the cities, how does that help the protesters? The religious police and the IRG, they are also embedded in town. You can't strike them. And this is what I was saying back a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just wondering, with his armada there, what's the plan, man?
Well, exactly. I mean, he can take out, as you say, maybe some of the bases of the Revolutionary Guard headquarters things, but a lot of those are embedded. Really, the plan to do it properly would be the last thing he wants to do, which is boots on the ground, and then you risk a potential rerun of Iraq and Afghanistan, which he definitely won't want to do.
And that's the only way he could affect what the protesters need is boots on the ground.
Yes.
It's not going to be from missiles. That's just going to make the situation worse for the people there.
At the end of the day, the problem the protesters faced is the IRG and others with Kalashnikovs on the street, and unless you're going to target
they're sniping
those,
them now.
Exactly, it's terrible.
So it's one-on-one now.
And we don't even really have any idea how bad it is, because they've successfully, apart from a few periods, blocked the internet. So it's very, very hard to get a sense of what's going on.
So we know it's still going on, but we don't know to what degree, because they've silenced us. But I just, all this posturing, this Billy Big Balls stuff is really annoying. I'm going to send all these ships there. What are you going to do with them when you've got them there, mate? And everybody else is saying don't do anything, because that would just kick off another Middle East crisis. Iran, of course, are having to say, well, we've got our fingers on the trigger and you don't know what we've got, which is probably a tin can and a cat. I don't know. But it's just dragging the world into another dangerous situation by posturing. There are other ways.
It makes everybody very, very nervous. I suspect he thinks it's a brinkmanship thing where he'll... Exactly.
But they're going to back down. Back down to do what? It is not possible for the regime that is there at the moment to fix the problem, because their economy has tanked.
Yes.
How are they going to fix the problem when there's all these sanctions on them? It is not a solvable Donnie Trump going in there and solving the problem situation. It is not. It is a disaster there.
No, and also the regime know that if it looks to the point where they really can't cling on, then they're going to have to be on a private plane off to Russia.
Yeah, and there's already been loads of planes dropping into Tehran and taking off again to Russia, probably collecting all the gold and the art.
Yes.
And one day the Ayatollah will be on that.
Yeah.
And if they try to effect regime change by doing another Maduro, the Ayatollah's got 5 or 6 people in succession of him, all scattered around the country. So it's not what's going to change.
I suspect he hopes it will be Venezuela Mark II. Is Trump will
That's
think,
what he's thinking.
Yeah, he can get regime training in Iran.
Yeah. And I think I should have a line to the White House and tell him that he's talking absolute nonsense. Right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening to you. It is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you and with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor. The Daily Mirror's gone big on the Gulf standoff, Trump's war threat to Iran. President warns rogue state time is running out for nuke talks. I thought he'd sorted that. I thought he'd sorted the nuclear problem with Iran.
Well, he said he had in June when they had those airstrikes, but maybe not. So he certainly says he wants to get them round the table and to get them to commit to talks on their whatever's left of their nuclear weapons. And the Mirror's got a big picture of the USS Abraham Lincoln, that huge aircraft carrier.
It's a really impressive aircraft carrier. It really is beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. Donald Trump has warned Iran that massive armada of US warships will launch a devastating attack unless it comes to the table for nuclear talks. The president said to be considering targets including weapons caches. Seriously? And members of the Revolutionary Guard. What members of the like I was saying, what, one at a time? Because the camps are not out in the mountain. You know, what's he going to hit? People?
Exactly.
They're innocent people?
Yeah, they're embedded in built-up areas and civilian areas, as you said, and even if he takes out the leadership, there's a whole... It's not like Maduro where there was... You were going for one person.
Well, he hasn't taken out the leadership, has he, in Venezuela? No. I've heard something really interesting today about Venezuela, is that Donald Trump has now managed to get a 15 billion debt from China over Venezuela because Beijing has invested billions into the oil infrastructure in Venezuela, and they were being paid in oil, right? So these ships that were leaving were paying China in oil for that investment. And now Xi has said, well, seeing as you're now taking all the boats and using the oil yourself, and putting any money into a bank in Qatar, because that's where the money's going, not dodgy at all, you owe us 15 billion.
Well, that's great, isn't it? So that, and that just
everything
worsens.
Trump touches, and go, yeah, we're going to make billions. It's like you've now got a debt, and in Wikipedia says you're the president of Venezuela, so you now owe $15 billion. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't seem, nobody seems to think things through in that organisation, in the Trump administration. They just don't seem to, like I'm saying, with this threatening to bomb Iran, it's like, well, where and what?
Yes, well, it keeps changing all the time.
How. Yeah, he's changed the reason, as you said. This is now about nuclear talks. It's not about the people at all. Well, he didn't care about the people anyway, let's be honest. The Daily Mail says the same thing. My Armada is ready to strike with speed and violence. Iran saying our forces have fingers on triggers and will respond like never before. Oh my God, they're sounding like each other now. Countdown to conflagration. That's a weird headline. Donald Trump last night issued a chilling threat to Iran, make a nuclear deal or face an overwhelming military onslaught. But this is also a leader who doesn't care about his people. So he doesn't care about a military onslaught because he'll be fine.
No, exactly. You're talking about a regime that's already killed 20 to 40,000 people that we know of.
They've murdered. They've gunned down their own people. They've been starving their own people. They've been creaming off all the profits for any money for themselves. They don't give a damn about the people, the Iranian people, which is heartbreaking. And so is the Ayatollah really going to care if Donald Trump bombs it? He's not going to make him go to the table. They're both stubborn old men.
Yes.
This is why there should be an age limit on these
on leaders, yes.
Yeah.
They're both very, I mean, Trump's 79. I'm not sure how old the Ayatollah is.
But older, I think. But it's just like these stubborn old men. Go and play golf or knit or something.
Yes, just stop plunging into new wars,
Like, honestly, please. I mean, we all know how stubborn old men can be, right? We've all had grandpas. That's what they are. Yeah, well, mine's bigger than yours. Anyway, and they're playing a very, 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 very dangerous game. The Daily Telegraph. Starmer used the ECHR to investigate British troops. Keir Starmer called for European human rights laws to be used to investigate British troops in Iraq in the book edited by Phil Shinner. Or Shiner, is it Shinner? I think it's Shinner. The disgraced lawyer. Look, Keir Starmer, I've got no skin in the game with him. I'm not a fan. But he was a human rights lawyer. And that was his thing, right? And soldiers are held to human rights laws. They are not allowed. So it's okay. I think it's okay to investigate them. Don't hound them, as they have been, but investigating them for potential war crimes, that's what a good country does. That's what a sensible country does. I think he went too far, but what do you make of this story? Do you think it's a fuss about?
Yeah, it's a complicated story, but the Telegraph are very much getting their teeth into this idea that the Prime Minister, in his former life as a lawyer, was very much a driving force behind these investigations that looked at the involvement of British troops that were being investigated over claims of war crimes, or false claims that they say they weren't involved in. And this goes back to sort of a book written a long time ago by Phil Shiner, I think it is, the disgraced lawyer, I think it might be. And he, they've got a picture of him with the two of them together 12 years ago. But that's before this lawyer was struck off. So
it is before,
someone wouldn't
but
have known
I mean,
that.
he was an ambulance chaser, wasn't he? He was a troublemaker.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is... I mean, that headline is really... If you just read the headline, you'd think that was today.
Exactly, it was quite a long time ago, and I think one of the other things, what sort of Downing Street said about a lot of these cases is, it's not as though he was there trying to prosecute the soldiers, as Number 10 put it, they say that the Prime Minister was not involved in the subsequent cases heard in the European Courts of Human Rights. He was there to assist the court on points of law, because I think he was there as a kind of intermediary for the Law Society. So he was effectively neutral in what was going on. He was just acting there as a lawyer advising the Law Society.
And so, you know, if soldiers, if there was wrongdoing, if there was, you know, extrajudicial murder or whatever it is they were accused of, then that is a war crime, I'm afraid, and they know better than that. I'm not talking about hounding soldiers that had to shoot somebody to save their own life. That is absolutely right and fair. But it's an interesting thing that you know, we look at other countries and expect their troops to follow human rights, and then we're saying that this is wrong for ours too. I think that's a little odd, to say the least. This couple of stories here. This is a good one. Prostate screening may cover black men, and this is the screening that has been extended to include people who've had prostate cancer in their family before, so they'll be called to go for screening, but it's not blanket screening. Although Wes Streeting is now, I could have told him before his meeting that black men are more than twice as likely to get prostate cancer than white men, and so he's looking at now, and I think that's absolutely right. If they are twice as likely, which they are, then they should be part of the screening process, and it's a good thing. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, where Streeting was pushing, there was a push to get much more widespread screening, but it looks as though they're now moving towards focusing on black men where incidents are higher, and also family where there's a history of it, which makes sense. If you can't test everybody, then test the people who are most likely to have it. The most likely to have it,
and don't forget, from the age of 50, you can ask for a screening anyway. The other story that I saw here, it's a nib at the bottom, and I wish there was more information. The NHS has called in an exorcist over a haunted hospice. The NHS has asked deliverance ministers, known as exorcists, to carry out a religious service using a holy oil at a hospice in Norwich.
It's amazing, isn't it? The former Priscilla Bacon Lodge near Coleman Hospital, and it's there's been a hospice on that site until 1975. But it's weird, isn't it? I mean, you hear about these things occasionally, but not normally in hospitals.
No.
So
I mean, I suppose a hospice would be, if you're gonna, but.
There've been unexplained occurrences. Doesn't say what the occurrences are, though.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Presumably, people have been seeing things.
But it's a hospice. Then they're on drugs.
Or maybe they think because it's a hospice, few people have died there over the years, and they're seeing the ghosts of people who passed away in the hospice. Either way, it sounds a bit...
It's an odd decision.
It is.
But there you go. I hope it works for them. Or at least it will have a placebo effect.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a minute.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're going through the papers for you for tomorrow. The Guardian. Time is running out, Trump says. We've covered that. Starmer meeting Xi. The other story, just a picture story at this point, which I was talking to you about in the break. There's quite extraordinary footage from America where there was a Minnesota Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, was at a meeting in Minneapolis, and she was just talking, and this man lunged towards her with a syringe full of liquid and sprayed it on her. Now, you would think that the first thing you would do is run away and cower. She went forward. Like, what are you doing? What are you? What a tiny little woman, a really brave woman. And as she was leaving, she said, "I'm not going to be intimidated by this stuff. I'm not going to stop speaking out." And you can't help but think that this again has been ramped up by Donald Trump saying things like, "Well, Somalia's not really a country. They're only really good for being pirates, and they're not even very good at that. There's all violence, you know, and they've stolen all this money." And words have consequences, you know, and the consequences could very well be, I don't know in this case, that somebody thought, well, I'm going to go for her.
Yeah, she's been incredibly brave, and it's a really striking picture on the front of the Guardian there with this attacker being restrained after he sprayed this unknown substance at her, and it just makes you realise how vulnerable still, even though there have been so many attacks on politicians, that many politicians are. They still want to get out and meet people, but people, you don't need a gun, as this guy's proving. You just need a syringe full of potentially dangerous liquid. And
she, honestly, the footage of her just stepping forward, not in a non-aggressive way, but just stepping forward. She walked towards him, and I saw her being interviewed as she came out, and people were saying, "Are you all right?" And she, "I think so. I'm going to go and be checked now, but yeah, I'm not going to be intimidated." It's like, what have you got on you? You don't know what you've got. Is it a biological agent? Well, it's unlikely to be. It's probably we or something. But you know, all of this nasty rhetoric that is going on in politics at the moment in America and here, actually, not as bad, but it has consequences.
It does, and you can see the shock of some of the bystanders behind the man as he's restrained, and you know, terrible. It's
awful. But in fact, if you get a chance to have a look at that footage, do so. It's Ilhan Omar. Just Google that. But when I've finished, obviously not right now. The Daily Express for tomorrow, Thursday. Kemi, my party is for serious people and not drama queens. Again, I watched her this morning as well. I thought she hit a good tone, actually, because she was just taking the mick out there. They just want to be on telly.
Exactly, and I think she's hit exactly the right tone with this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do.
There's so much going on in the world that was almost forgotten about, all this sort of exodus of conservatives going into reform, and Kemi sort of hit back at this in front of the Express. My party's for serious people and not for drama queens. So she's labelled as sort of Robert Jenrick's and
I'm
Andrew
sorry you didn't
Rosendale's.
win the leadership contest, which is Jenrick. I'm sorry you didn't get a job in the shadow cabinet, which is what's her name, the last one, Suella Braverman. And I'm sorry you didn't get into the Lords, which is Zahawi.
Yes.
So, I mean, but she was brilliant. It was like, well, I'm sorry you didn't get what you wanted, and you just throw in a little tantrum and you've run off to reform.
And she compared them, I think, to her children and says, you know, I don't tolerate this, and if my kids mess around, I send them to their rooms or something. And she's sort of very dismissive, very good, but she's got a problem because well, they've got problems really, because losing a lot of people, and if she needs the exodus to stop, otherwise there won't be much of the Conservative Party left. But she has handled it very, very well.
She's handled it very well, and I think that Farage, I think I'm right in saying that Farage has set a deadline for May.
Yes, he has, I think.
To say, look, if you're going to leave now. But where's this big Labour player?
Well, there have been lots of rumours. I think there was a rumour that it might be former Labour MP Kate Hoey, and she's denied it. And Nigel Farage promised last week there'd be a big Labour defector. By
last Tuesday, wasn't it?
It was, and we've not seen one yet, so presumably there will be one at some point. But of course it's causing some discontent in reform, because a lot of people joined reform or support reform because they didn't like the Conservatives.
Exactly.
So
it's becoming a real problem now.
28, is it 28, as many as that? I can't remember. Former Conservative MPs who served largely under Boris Johnson. So if you're a sort of die-hard reformer and you dislike the Conservatives.
I was talking about that this time last week, actually. I did a phone-in on it, and there were surprising numbers of people who said, yeah, I thought they were going to be a new, different party. This is just the Tories. It's really made me rethink.
Exactly. He has got to be careful with that, and it'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
There's, of course, big test coming up at the end of February with a by-election in Manchester that Andy Burnham now won't be standing in, but Reform potentially in the
could win that.
that. So, but if they don't win it, bad for Reform.
Well, I looked at the polling before I came on air, and Reform is just slightly nudged ahead of Labour, but Labour would be ahead of Reform if Andy Burnham was standing. That's the latest.
I'm sure
polls.
that's the case.
That's the latest polls, which won't, which if I was going to say Trump, Starmer has seen that, he won't be too happy about it. The Daily Star, spend it like Beckham. Plonkers, Brooklyn, and Nicola Phelps show off posh 80 grand wine bottle as part of the war of the posers. I mean, talk about being out of touch, right?
Yeah, but they're fighting out on Instagram, aren't they? There's a response to the great pictures of Victoria and David Beckham, which was picking up an award in Paris the other day. So it must be one of those things, a bit like in the political world, you sort of tune in to see what Donald Trump said overnight, and in the Beckham world, you tune into Instagram to see what they've been up to overnight.
I mean, honestly, have your battles privately. Who cares? No, it's just ridiculous. The I paper, again covering the Armada heading towards Iran. Iranians are fleeing the capital. The I paper has learnt in anticipation of an imminent attack. The US president says strikes will be worse than 25 bombing of nuclear facilities. Iran's armed forces are ready with fingers on the trigger to powerfully respond to aggression. Yeah, okay. We'll see. The Financial Times, Minister floats universal basic income for workers. Yes, please.
Well, we'd all like that, wouldn't we?
Love that.
I think they're worried, aren't they, about the number of jobs that could be wiped out by artificial intelligence.
Even this year, they're talking about thousands of jobs going this year through AI. It's here. It's not like sometime in the future.
No.
So the universal basic income is basically anybody, they're saying, in sectors wiped out by AI. So everybody would get a universal salary. You wouldn't get benefits, you wouldn't get unemployment. You could probably get, I think somebody mooted around 10, 15 grand a year. So that, and then if you wanted to work, or you could get another job, you could top up that money. Who's going to pay for it, though?
Well, that's the thing. Benefits bill is already spiralling.
Yeah, we can't afford a universal basic income unless companies are told, and I think this is what should happen, that if you replace a person with AI, you have to pay the national insurance for the AI like you would for the person, and the tax. So whatever the person would have paid in tax, you'd have to pay the salary, obviously, because you're not giving it to anyone, but you'd have to pay the exchequer and national insurance on that robot.
Yeah, and that would generate some money.
And that would generate the money to pay, and it would also make them think twice about just sacking people for AI. I think that's what's got to happen.
And these are all the comments of Lord Jason Stockwood, who's the government's investment minister, not particularly well-known name, but it's fascinating, isn't it? Because a lot of people would be very worried about AI taking their jobs, but if the blow's cushioned a bit and you get some income in the meantime while you can retrain, then that sounds like a good thing, I think.
I think so. Well, it is the future. It's either that or penury for everybody that loses their job, because this is going to happen, right? It's happening. I know copywriters already who are not working anymore because AI has taken their jobs. So, and it wouldn't take much to have an AI presenter, I presume. It's not that difficult. I mean, I'm sure they'd be able to do that. But you know what I mean? And so there is a lot of concern about it, and there has to be a plan. And I think they have to say to these AI companies, well, right, you're not going to get away with your national insurance bill, because if you replace a person, we need that money still.
I think that's right, and the government hasn't given any real clear evidence of what's going to happen, and this AI stuff is moving very fast, not just in copywriting, but in a lot of entry-level jobs in law firms, accountancy firms, things like that. Sort of a lot of stuff that traditionally graduates or people leaving school will be doing. A lot of those jobs are the first jobs that are going, and that's what's adding to kind of youth unemployment. That's why we've got 1 million young people who are sort of not employed or in training.
And they're saying that journalism as one of the top jobs as well, in terms of newspaper writing.
Absolutely.
Newspaper
I mean, some very big newspaper groups are trying to generate millions and millions of pages that are almost exclusively written by AI these days.
Yeah, and also there are broadcasters, I won't mention it, who uses an AI sports presenter.
Yeah. And I've seen an AI traffic report on. So it's growing. So
it's happening. Yeah. And they shouldn't be allowed to get away with just replacing human beings with robots or AI without any cost.
No, especially when they're making or set to make billions and billions and billions.
Exactly. They need to pay.
They do.
We should be running the country, Vincent.
Yes.
80-year-old crime mastermind, this is the Metro, lotto winner set up a £228 million drugs empire. Well, I suppose it's investment of sorts, isn't it?
Well, he seems to have done rather well on it. He won 2.4 million on the lottery.
He's done all right.
But he's sort of turned it into a... But wouldn't you just sat back if you won 2.4 million? I think that'd be enough for me.
Absolutely.
But he seems to have spent it all selling drugs, allegedly, for a fortune, and built up this nearly 300 million drugs fortune. I mean, looks as though he's 80.
I mean,
why doesn't he just retire on his 2.4 million?
Yeah, I mean, we've kept him busy. You know, he's had a hobby better than golf.
Yeah, maybe now he risks presumably spending his last years in jail. So maybe that investment didn't work out so well.
Maybe it didn't. Maybe I was thinking what I would do, and maybe I'm not going to invest in a drugs empire now.
I quite like the fact that his mates called him, his gang called him Elon. They called him Elon and Jeff after Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Yeah, quite funny.
Right, well, I'm not going to set up my drugs empire now.
No.
I was going to.
Just being a millionaire is enough for most.
Just being a millionaire would be absolutely fine. I reckon £500,000 would suit me. That'd be fine. That would sort me out. Vincent Moss, thank you very much indeed for that. So those are your papers for Thursday. And coming up, it is now Talk Back, so it's your opportunity to do exactly that. And I want to talk to you about religion. Do you have a religion? Are you a religious person? Do you have faith? Did you? And you've turned your back on it? Let me know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. This is Talkback with me, Petrie, and what I want you to talk back about this morning is religion. Two reasons for this that I've chosen this morning for this. We have a new Archbishop of Canterbury, Dame Sarah Mullally, and first woman to hold the role in 1,400 years. It took them quite a long time to allow women to do anything. In 1993, I think, was when they first started letting women be ordained into the church. But despite the fact that God says we're all born equal, but there you go. But we're not the same, apparently. Equal is not the same. But that's always a good cop-out. But I just wonder. I mean, it's brilliant to see that women are being included. So certainly not in other religions. They're not. They're considered to be lower form of life. This is what I don't understand. If God created us all as equal, why are women in so many faiths and religions considered to be lower than low? I don't understand it. I mean, you look at the way the Taliban are treating women in Afghanistan. They're treated as of less value than a camel or a goat. They're not allowed to speak. They have to be covered up. You're allowed to beat them. I don't know. This is where any rational thought that I have over faith. It just makes everything disappear for me, because I just think, well, the teachings are supposed to be about, love and honour and respect and all of those things. And yet the human beings that say they practice these religions don't seem to follow through on the bits that they don't like. Because, in the Quran it doesn't say anything about covering women from head to toe. It certainly doesn't say anything about silencing their voices in the Quran. But men have decided in the Taliban to somehow speak for their God. And that's what I don't understand, is if God is all-knowing, if a God is all-knowing, and there are different versions of God, of course, there always has been, then why are men deciding what he meant? Why are men going, well, it doesn't say anything in the Quran about, putting a woman in a head-to-toe blanket. It just says, be modest, right? That's all it says in the Quran. It doesn't say about it. Then people go, no, well, it's a cultural thing. It's not a religious thing. It's culture. But they're doing it on behalf of their God. They're saying that this is what their God would, because they know better than God. And I would have thought that God would be pretty annoyed by that. I just genuinely think if there was a God, he'd be pretty fed up with man making decisions on his behalf. It's like those people who say that homosexuality is a sin. Well, if God made everything and God created everything, then he created homosexuals as well, surely. You can't have it both ways. He either created everything or he didn't. And therefore, why would that be a sin? And then they point to Leviticus and they say, well, it says man shall not lie down with man. And then you point out, yeah, but it also says don't eat shellfish and don't wear mixed clothing, right? And that was written not by God. That was written by a man who thought that that's what God would want him to say. So that's a man trying to supersede God. And there's no doubt about it as well that all religions are based in a firm misogyny as well, because it was written by men. I mean, even earlier on, I was discussing this, and they said, yeah, but there were men that were there at the time that saw this happen. Well, we know from modern technology alone, and I certainly do as a journalist, that and police know this as well, 5 people can see the same thing happen and all have a different interpretation of what they've seen. So man is fallible. Even if man bore witness to Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ's time on this earth, even if they bore witness to that and then wrote it down, which is what apparently happened, each one of them would have had a different perspective on what they saw, because human beings are fallible. So does that not make the Bible fallible? Not to mention the number of translations that these religious books have been through and interpretations that these religious books have been through. Again, all interpreted by men, by male scholars. So forgive me for having a bit of a few questions around faith and religion. So that's where I am. I'm not saying, you know, I can't know if there's a God or not, neither can you. You just believe there is. You have that faith. That is a difference. I don't have faith. I'm an agnostic atheist. I've thought about it. I've looked at it. I can't see any evidence that it's anything but a scam, in my view. But that is just my view. And I want to hear yours. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you have faith and why you have faith, why it sustains you, what it does for you, how, despite all of the questions, do you still believe in what you believe in? And I am genuinely fascinated by that. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Of course, a charge at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text me, text the word talk and then your message to 87222. Steve has called from Milton Keynes. Good morning, Steve. How are you? How is Milton Keynes? I used to live near there.
Oh, well, that's good.
Newport Pagnell, do you know it?
Well, we're near Newport Pagnell.
Yeah, it's nice. Pretty little place. Anyway, tell me about religion and faith. Do you have it?
Well, I was born and brought up at a church farm, and we had a church next to us, and we all need religion in our life, if that makes sense.
Why?
Why?
Mm.
Well, isn't it nice to know that when you pass over to the other side, that there's something nicer to go to?
No. I intend to make full use of the time I've got here. I'm not waiting for jam tomorrow. I want to live my life and not think, oh, well, if I mess it up, I'm going to a better place.
Well, but we don't know if it's a better place or not.
Well, according to God or religious people, I'm not going to a better place because I don't accept there's a God.
Well, that's your fallacy, and that's it.
But this is what I don't understand, right? I'm a really nice human being. I'm a good human being. I probably live a very moral life. I've never broken the law. I've never hurt anybody. You know, I'm probably closer to what God would want than most people who call themselves Christian. And yet he would deny me a place in heaven because of his ego. That I don't understand.
Yeah, accepted. But do you not think that there is somewhere eventually that we have to think that there is a better place, or a place that's going to look after us after we pass over to the other side?
But that's what I don't understand, Steve, because why aren't we making this a better place? Why don't we accept that we have, you know, whatever it is, 80 years and 10 on this earth, and then we go back to the earth. That's it. We have this moment, this glimmer, this flicker of a time, and we should be being the best versions of ourselves and having the best lives that we can during this time on earth. Not think, oh, well, I might have screwed this up, I might have killed somebody, or I might have broken the law a few times, I might have just done, but it's okay because the next one will be okay. That again doesn't seem to make logic to me.
Well, but even though this side of the life, shall we say, we have to try and be the best person we are.
Yeah.
You know.
But is it not just a fear of death, the fear of nothingness that leads people to want to believe in something afterwards?
But at the end of the day, you know, there is too many people on this earth at the moment that wish us harm. Do you not think?
Yeah, but those people would wish us harm. I mean, if you look at the history of religion, it has caused more deaths, more wars than any other single issue, and still does, right? So, you know, just having a religion doesn't prevent you from being a murderer or being a bad person, does it? Because you look at the Crusades, millions and millions of people died in the Crusades.
That they certainly did, and I do accept that. But at the end of the day, did they not crusade for a better way of life?
Yeah, but everybody says that. Every war they say that. Every battle over your God is different to my God, and there have been 18,000 gods in human history. 18,000. Really? You know, and lasting, each one lasting for, a couple of, 100 years here, 1,000 years there. There's been so many gods. What makes you think the one you're worshipping is the right one? That's the other thing.
Is it not the one that was... Well, it's the Bible. Now, do you not like the Bible, or?
No, I think it's a perfectly interesting book. I've read it. I've got, I went to a Christian school, blah blah blah. But I didn't take it. There was nothing it gave me that I didn't already have, and that is a strong sense of morality and support of everybody on this planet. And there are many people who call themselves Christians who are now saying, "Oh, get those immigrants out." And I go, "Well, you're supposed to be Christian." Yeah, but that's different. No, it's not. Jesus was an immigrant. He talks about it in the Bible. He talks about it in the Bible, actually, saying how he wants other people to be treated as they were your neighbour. But people pick and choose what they take out of the Bible and then think it makes them a good Christian.
But do you not think we have to start with values somewhere?
But I have values. I don't have religion. My son is an amazing human being. He'll help anybody. He'll do anything for any. He's a wonderful human being. Brought up in a non-religious home, but a home of morals. So I don't equate morals with religion.
I accept that, but my children. I'm religious. I go to church on a Sunday. I go to Bible study on a Tuesday. My children are not religious, but they accept my values that I've got as a Christian.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I accept your values. I have the same values, without the book. But I can accept your value. I have no issue with people who are religious at all. I think if it works for you, I'm absolutely thrilled for you. Genuinely, I'm not being sarcastic. I am genuinely happy for you. But when there's been so many deities and so many gods that mankind has worshipped over the years, some of them for thousands of years were worshipped. Anu was worshipped for 3,000 years of human history. 3,000 years. So why is the modern day God, and this was before Christ, it collapsed 500 years BC. But you see what I mean? Why is if this God is the real God, the forever God, why wasn't he the forever God 3,500 years BC? Why did we have to wait for Jesus to come along?
You have a very good point there, but I mean, my children being brought up to respect people. They know that it's wrong to go around murdering people.
Yeah.
They know that some people.
But don't you think?
What they are.
Don't you think, Steve, that as a decent human being, you would have taught them that anyway? Did you need religion for you to teach them that? Do you think?
Probably not. I do agree with that one.
And that's the point I'm making, is I think good people are good people. And if they take up a religion, they will attribute that goodness to their religion. Whereas I just think you're a decent bloke and a decent dad, and you brought your kids up properly, as I did mine. But you did it thinking that it was religion helping you do it, and I did it without religion, but we did the same thing.
But do you think there's a lot of people in the world or society nowadays that don't respect those sort of values?
I do. I agree with that. But I think there's an awful lot of horrible parents who also don't respect those values. But I don't know if the church would have made bad people good. I think it makes good people gooder. But people who choose to go into a church probably want to change themselves anyway.
Yes, I agree with that one as well. But do you not think the society in general the children in society are being brought up differently than what you and I have been brought up in the 60s or whatever.
Yes, I do, but I don't know if I would put that down to a lack of religion. I would put that down to a lack of social cohesion. I'd put that down to a lack of education. I'd put that down to a lot of too much narcissism, not being taught morals and empathy when you're a child. You know, what do they say? Give me the child before he's 7 and I'll give you the man. You know, the children are not being taught about caring and about empathy and about love. They're being taught about AI or TikTok or capitalism or voracious buying of stuff. And so it's the fact that children aren't being taught properly rather than the lack of religion, in my view.
I don't disagree with you, but the children who have been brought up nowadays are completely different to how you and I were brought up back in the 60s, 70s.
Absolutely, but we also didn't have the same societal pressures, right? We didn't have an NHS that wasn't working. We didn't have schools that were rubbish. We didn't have mass immigration that somebody's going to be shouting at the screen. We didn't have AI. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have the pressure of these influencers and all of those things. It was a very different world. It was a much simpler world.
But is that not the problem that we're facing in the way we live nowadays?
Yes, but do you honestly think that these people, if they had, do you think that religion would change these people? Because I don't. I don't think it would change society as it is.
Well, that I probably would beg to differ on that one, because, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and even now, I go to church Sundays. I disagree with things like Sunday shopping. I disagree with lots of things that are happening nowadays. But did it not make you the better person back then? You respected people more.
But again, I take you back to that was a teaching from a generation that had seen the Second World War, for example. You know, from a generation that had lived in real poverty of everything because of the Second World War, and I just think that it was more moral teaching because of the Nazis. There was more moral teaching because we were so close to, you know, our parents were closer to that atrocity, that abhorrent atrocity that happened to mankind, and therefore there was more knowledge and more empathy. The further we get away from that war, the fewer people care about it, right? So I genuinely think that people had different attitudes then because the country had just been through something absolutely terrible.
Well, now, I was born in the 60s and brought up in the 60s and 70s. The 70s, for instance, I can remember a paper round that I did back in the 70s, and I did it for years, and it taught me to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go and deliver the papers, and then get on the school bus at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it taught me right from wrong. It taught me how to work. The children nowadays do not get that moral ethics that we have to go to work.
And a lot of that isn't their fault because they're not allowed to work now like we were. I mean, you know, my mother would have shoved me up a chimney if she could have done at any point. But yeah, I mean, they're not allowed because of work laws and all of that, and all these jobs have gone. It was a different time, but I don't believe, you do believe, and that is fine, but I don't believe that has much to do with religion of the day any more than it has to do with, like I said, closeness to the Second World War, a different upbringing, no smartphones, you know, jobs that we could do from a young age. All of those things, I think that they led into a more moral bunch of adults that we are today. I think you still would have been that person, Steve, without your religion. I still believe that good people are good people. Great conversation though. Thank you, Steve. Good to talk to you. I've got to take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back, and this is Petrie. And we're having the conversation that you should never have at a dinner party. We're talking about religion. And there was a report that came out that said that this quiet revival of Christianity that is supposed to be taking place in the UK actually isn't, and that churches are still suffering, still unable to reach the levels they even had before or during the pandemic. So it's an interesting topic, and I just want to know why it is that maybe you've turned against religion, or maybe you've never had religion. I mean, once I got old enough to think about it, I thought about it, read about it, looked around, and decided there were too many anomalies. There were too many circles that I couldn't square. There were too many things that didn't add up, and therefore not for me. For my own child, I said, if you want to be a part of a religion, it is entirely up to you. The only thing I ask you to do is check them all out. Check them all out and see which one suits you, which one you like. Because these gods that have been around, I don't, there are other gods before that were there for thousands of years and then disappeared. We've always, as a species, worshipped something. Worship the sun, or we worship the earth, or we worship a cat, or we worship a half dog. There's always been something that we've had to worship. We've had to. I think it's, for me, again, I think it's around this fear of death. I think it's this lack of being able to accept that perhaps this is it, that we're so special. It's almost like entitlement. We're so entitled that we think we're so special that we can't possibly die. And that if our bodies die, then there's something afterwards because we're exceptional. Why are we more exceptional than an elephant or an ant or a termite? Why are we more exceptional than that? All God's creatures, right? But exceptionalism prevents us, and ego, prevents us from saying, well, this is it. We've got to make the most of this. And when I go, I go. That is it. And I'm scared of nothing. I don't know what nothing feels like, but I've been in nothing before I was born. So I presume it's okay, But for me, that's why human beings have always had to worship something. They've always had to believe in something else, because the inability to accept death as final, as it, is too much. We cannot accept it because it's just too much. It blows your mind. So there's got to be something else, right? It's easier. That's where I'm coming from anyway. Trevor is in London. Hello, Trevor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The reason why I'm on the phone is because obviously I descended from Ireland.
Oh, I love your accent. Northern Ireland.
Thank you, yes. And growing up, obviously, the church was very much part of the family. We were sent to go to church every week. My father used to say there's 168 hours in a week. You've got to give at least 1 hour to Christ. And we did that growing up. But then as time was going on, in Ireland, you heard about week after week about priests and sexual assaults and so forth. And I mean, there was believe it or not, there was over 1,300 clergy in Ireland that were accused of sexual abuse against children.
I mean, it's not just the priest, it was the nuns as well, wasn't it? And
correct,
the appalling.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, and these people call themselves Christians. This is what I cannot bear, is the hypocrisy that goes with a lot of these religions.
And I mean, in Ireland there was 82 clergy that was charged with sexual abuse. Now these were people who we looked up to. These were people who
trusted,
you know, that were looked upon as being, you know, higher than your father within your family home, and these were people that you trusted with everything, and these were the people that abused the trust. And you know, whenever in Ireland, whenever there was a priest that was accused of sexual abuse, the Catholic Church just removed that person from the diocese and sent them off to a place like Africa.
Yeah, to do it there.
That allowed them then to continue on with this abuse. Now, going back to even the likes of Pope John Paul and so forth, they all knew about this, but they didn't want to say anything because the fact is it would affect the finances of the church. And you know, you wonder then, you know, in Ireland, they wonder then why the churches have been affected, both Protestant and Catholic, and you know, on both sides. And this was because the fact is they covered it up.
And also, it really annoys me. The Catholic Church will say, "Oh, you know, there's so much poverty in the world, and we're going to help people who are poor." The richest single country in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Catholicism could solve homelessness in this country by just selling off a few churches.
Correct. But not just that. I had a few of my friends that went off to Rome and went to the Vatican, etc. And they were saying, you know, when you went into certain parts of the Vatican, you weren't allowed to take photographs, and because the fact is, they said that the flash would damage certain things within the
worth millions.
But yet no,
yeah.
And yet no, they were selling you postcards or photographs of things that you would have taken. Now, the Catholic Church is rich. There's no doubt about it. And what you just said there, now, they could solve a lot of problems in the world. But
why is it okay for them to be rich? I thought a rich man couldn't enter into the eye of the needle or whatever. I can't remember the thing. You know, but it's okay for the Vatican to be so stinking rich, ridiculously rich. How is that okay?
Well, you know what? They say that you can't. There's no pockets in a shroud. But yet no. They wrap themselves around in the riches
and the gold and the ermine and the silk and the. I'm sure this is not what Jesus thought of when he thought about the future of mankind.
Well, of course, and I mean, listen, there was a part of scripture readings of Christ that was found in Nebbit in 1949, and the Catholic Church denounced those readings straight away because in those scripture readings it said that you do not have to go into a building to worship me, and that was scripture readings of Christ. They didn't want that because the fact is that they know you've got to come into the building. By coming into the building, you're going to have to pay your wealth.
Absolutely. I mean, and you look at what religion did in Northern Ireland as well, the Protestants and the Catholics, and the.
Yeah.
I mean, no. How is that a good thing in religion? This is what I don't get. I don't understand. Religion has caused more problems than it's solved.
Well, I'm a former soldier, and I went back and served in Northern Ireland. And when you look at it in a bigger context, and what people probably in England didn't realise, that there was a lot of Catholic priests that basically sided with the IRA.
Yeah, I know. I've read the history.
And I mean, you know, these were people who were supposed to be a man of the cloth.
They gave them sanctuary, didn't they? They took them in and hid them.
They did.
I mean, I just don't. It's all of these anomalies, Trevor. All of these things that don't make sense that prevent me from being a believer.
Well, I mean, listen. I lost my faith. I would say I lost my mother whenever she was very young. She died of cancer. My mother was a very, very religious person, devoted her life to Christ. And when she died, she was only 53 when she died. I was quite young. And I said to myself, and I said to my minister at the time, that, you know, why is it, if God is such a good person, why did he not save my mother from dying? We were quite young when she died. And he said, well, God has other purpose. I said, but we had a purpose for my mother to live.
Exactly that. And why is it that evil people seem to live longer?
Well, exactly. And I said to my minister that, you know, my mother, she gave up her life for God, but yet no, he couldn't give up a little bit more for her to enjoy her life. Her last 3 or 4 years of her life, she died with absolute agony with cancer. And, you know, and as you just rightly said, there's a lot of people out there that molest children. There's a lot of people out there that murder people. Why doesn't God take those? If God is such a God, I mean, listen, I'm a father. Would I want to see my children suffer? The answer is no.
No.
So why did God make his children suffer? Why did he make my mother suffer? And there's lots of questions surrounding it.
Whenever I read bits of the Bible and what he put people, you know, like killing somebody's kids and then saying, oh, you learnt your lesson, I'll give you some different kids. I mean, a God wouldn't do that, right? I mean, you couldn't kill my boy and then just say, well, it's fine, I'll give you another one. I'd be like, I don't want another one, I wanted that one, right? So there's a lot of teachings in the Bible, and also about slavery and things like that, which is why the Bible, you know, people lean on the Bible. I find it extraordinary because there's a lot of really bad, dark stuff in the Bible. And if that's what God really is, then why worship him?
Yeah. But I say, when you go back and look at the sexual abuse in Ireland, you know, over 1,300 cases were brought, 82 priests were charged, and yet all the Catholic Church tried to cover it up. And whenever you look at a film, I don't know if you've ever seen it, called The Magdalene Sisters.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. It's on my list.
It's a true story about, obviously, young children that were given up because, obviously, back in Ireland, it was a sin to have a child outside marriage.
Oh, right, up until the 70s, right?
Yeah. So these children were given to the church and brought up in what they call like slave houses, and in the film, it shows you that when the children misbehaved, they were sent to the priest. The priest sexually abused them, and it only became knowledge whenever two young children, about I think they were 14 or 15 years of age, escaped from the dormitories where the nuns were running it. And they basically spoke out, and then it became a public knowledge. So if you ever get a chance, look at it, called The Magdalene Sisters. It's a very, very good film.
I will definitely watch that. I was watching something the other day that talked about dying rooms, that the nuns, if they didn't...
It's quite appalling that how these priests that were supposed to be men of God behaved in such a way, and the nuns as well. I mean, vicious, absolutely. These young girls that got pregnant,
you know, the nuns would select which ones lived and which ones died, and if they were a slightly, you know, a different colour, they'd put them into a cold room and let them just die, or they'd take the babies off the, you know, and they were selling them. They were making money from selling babies. These are religious women.
And again, even the Irish government and the Irish police in the south of Ireland didn't want to intervene because they didn't want to come in between God, the faith, the priests, and the religion.
Yeah, Trevor, you and I are on the same page, actually, with this, because that's what doesn't make sense to me. It's like when people say to me, oh, I don't want trans women in bathrooms, I said, I'd rather send my son into a room with a trans woman than a priest. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean,
also wear a dress.
Whenever we used to grow up, and I know it's you know, they used to say, you know, the Catholic Church was building, the church is now round, and the reason why it was to hide the altar, so the altar boys couldn't hide in the corner, and we used to laugh at that. But
it turned out to be true, right? And it's also in the Anglican faith as well. I mean, these, like you said, the hypocrisy. These are men of God. And women of God, in the case of the Catholic nuns, who, what were they reading? What book were they reading? It certainly wasn't a good book that told them how to behave nicely towards other people. I just don't get it. I don't understand why people believe in it. Trevor, I love talking to you, particularly listening to your fabulous voice. So do call again.
Thank you so much, Petra. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Good morning. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and we're talking about religion. I want to know why are you religious, or why are you not religious? Gary has written and he said, I was raised Catholic and went to Catholic schools. I'm a non-practicing now. To me, faith was an early form of policing. And when you look at all the abuse the Church and Catholic Church has done in the past to boys and girls, calling women witches and burning and drowning them, all the wars and hate caused by religion. I'm not welcome anyway, being gay. You see, I want to go where all the gays go. If there is an afterlife, please put me with the gays. I'm asking you, please, begging. I'll even pray. Also, unless I see it with my own eyes, I won't believe it, apart from alien life forms. Yeah, right, Gary. So that's Gary. Sean says, I'm an atheist and I used to believe that once you're dead, you're dead. However, my mum passed away in February last year at the age of just 62. Oh my gosh, that's so young, Sean. Watching her while she died changed my belief and view. I also think that whatever gives you comfort, just go with it. And that's Sean in Liverpool. I completely agree with that. Whatever gives you comfort, go with that, especially if you lost your mum at that young age. That's extraordinary. Helen says, I love this one actually. Believing in a particular religion is like voting for whoever your parents vote for. I was brought up Roman Catholic, but you can't tell a person what to believe in. You either believe or you don't. If I was born in a different country to different parents, they would teach me a different religion. Yeah, you'd have a different God, right? Teach, it's taught. I know I'm a good person. Believing in a religion doesn't make you good. I believe there is a higher power, but I don't know what or who it is. But I definitely believe in Freddie Mercury. Yeah, me too. Can that be a religion? I suppose anything can be, can't it? Helen in Knutsford, thank you. And Ian simply says, I would consider myself a God-fearing man, but will have nothing to do with religion. Interesting. OK, let's get back to your calls. And when I was putting this show together earlier on, I said, I bet you Grace calls. Hello, Grace, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely not. I said Grace will call. I was looking forward to talking to you. So, what do you? Because I know you have faith, right?
I do. I think we all do. I think we all, though we don't necessarily think about it much, actually believe in a bunch of things that we haven't necessarily, as someone said a moment ago, seen with our own eyes. Things that we can't actually be 100% certain of, you know, in a really strict sense, but we kind of take these on a balance of probability. So I think actually a lot of people have faith without necessarily realising it.
But faith in God. I have faith that you know, tomorrow it will be a lovely day because I'm not working. You know, I have faith in things, but I don't believe in a God. I don't believe there is a higher being that will take my soul onto a different place when I die.
Yeah, and I mean, a moment ago someone talked about how we just inherit our beliefs from our parents, and I know that commonly that does happen, but I didn't feel that way. I have Christian parents, they met at Bible college, and I really enjoyed going to church when I was a kid in the sense that it was a friendly place. And seriously, if people are lonely and they just want to hang out with some people, just go and stand at the back of a church.
I agree. I think it's a lovely place. Yeah.
And I have Asperger's and I was bullied at school and I felt kind of, you know, socially inferior. But when I went to church, I felt this is a nice place. People aren't going to be kind of here. But as I got a bit older, I started to think, actually, why would I believe any of this? And I'm not instinctively spiritual at all. I can't really get my head around things that I can't see and measure. But whilst I was most unwell with an eating disorder, not with anything else, hasten to add, that should have affected my thinking processes, I started to look more and more at apologetics, which are kind of rational arguments for Christianity. And I'd been struck while I'd been studying particularly photosynthesis that the complexity of molecular processes in biology and their interdependence, that is to say that while evolution, I'm not disagreeing with evolution, but evolution relies on things happening one step at a time and one thing being beneficial such that it continues and then these beneficial things accumulate. You kind of need to have some direction behind that, and there's mathematics
Do
to show
you?
this.
Because, I mean, I just see it as survival. Every species on this planet is an inbuilt survival, and so they adapt. And they change and they rely on each other, and plants particularly are absolutely fascinating.
Well, see, that's the thing, that they rely on each other, but it's even more the case at a molecular level. To have an adaptation, you have to have a gene mutation, and that gene mutation is only going to be of benefit if other gene mutations are simultaneously in place such that a molecule within a cell can function in a way that's beneficial for that organism.
No, but what happens is that if it doesn't change, then it dies. So it eventually learns what to do in order to survive.
But I'm talking about things at a molecular level. It's like having one puzzle piece. If that puzzle piece is going to be useful to that animal, you have to have another puzzle piece at the exact same time. So what I'm saying is, I'm not disagreeing with evolution. What I'm saying is that as I was studying science, and I'm not explaining this very well, there are other scientists who can explain it far better, but what I'm saying is that I started to feel that, though I can't really get my head around spiritual things, it did seem to appear that there probably was a designer, and then
but how would a designer at the beginning of time? So are you suggesting then that this designer just didn't do it once, that he's constantly up there tinkering right now with things at a molecular level, because lots of things die every day and lots of things come into existence every day on a molecular level, right? So are you suggesting that there's somebody doing that constantly, or did he design it once? Because if he designed it once, then how come it has evolved through billions of years of evolution?
I think he could have set things in place such that they were going to evolve in the way that they did.
But how could he know?
Because he's got knowledge of the things that he created.
And then why bother? I mean, if you had a designer, why bother with extinction? Why not create the perfect thing at the beginning? Why have to have something adapt on a molecular level going forward if you've created what is the perfect thing on day one? And if you are God, then presumably you would do that. But over billions of years, there have been several, I think 5 actually, extinction processes where things have had to start to grow again, and different species have become, we only became the primary species after one of those extinction events that wiped out creatures that would have killed us had we been on the planet at the same time. So why not create Eden from day one?
I mean, I want to switch around to some completely different points in a moment, but just to try and address this quickly, and you're asking some brilliant questions. And again, scientists who are more adept would be able to answer this better, but there are beneficial purposes for a lot of the things in the Earth's history. For example, as much as I think that we need to go greener faster, fossil fuels have been very useful. And so if there hadn't been those organisms, we wouldn't have fossil fuels. So
yes, and therefore we wouldn't have survived. So it's not about a clever design. It is that if we didn't have fossil fuels, we wouldn't be where we are today. But maybe we would be doing something different. Who knows? But this is what I'm saying: why have those extinction events? I mean, you're saying that God wiped out the planet 5 times in order that we could have petrol in our cars. That doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't you just create that petrol from cars without wiping out the planet
I think
5 times?
You're presuming that there's some kind of there's a problem that those fossilized animals were somehow wasted, but God's not constrained and limited in the way that we are.
But I don't understand why. If God, right? This is God, the all-knowing, all-seeing, and He's going, I want human. After several billion years, I want mankind to be the predominant species, the primary species, the primary ape. That's what I want. I want man in my image to be the primary ape. But I'm going to take billions of years to do that. And then I'm going to drop them on the earth, but I'm going to make sure they've got petrol. Now, why wouldn't a god who wanted the planet to be populated with people in his own image create that from day one and create a tap that had petrol in it? I don't know why he would go through the process over billions and billions of years of destroying the earth that he designed, obviously badly at the beginning, because it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't really achieve much for us apart from the petrol, which he could have created in a different way.
But there's no reason to be in a hurry. He doesn't need to create it on day one. He's not limited. He created time.
So he just thought he'd have a bit of fun and torture animals. He just thought.
Well, that's a whole other.
No, hang on a minute, because he just thought he would take billions of years and kill innocent creatures. Just kill them. Just do you know what I fancy today? Setting fire to the planet that I've built. That's cruel. That's a cruelty. Well, you know why? Because we're so exceptional. We're just shaved apes. We're not that great.
I think that, again, that there's a whole lot that we need to understand about the degree of comprehension and pain reception of animals.
No, for me, what is difficult is trying to shoehorn a god into the argument of evolution. It doesn't work.
It's not about trying to shoehorn things. It's that I think, crucially, the account that we have in the beginning of Genesis of creation shouldn't be taken literally. That's a really important point to say.
Yeah.
And I think that my study of science and study by other scientists, even some scientists who aren't believers, has led to people concluding that there does seem to be an indication of a designer, and we're not necessarily going to understand everything that designer has designed, because our brains are obviously not cognizant of the complexity of the designer, in the same way that
I don't want to believe in a designer that would just wipe out a planet for no reason.
Well, I'm not thinking, I mean, some people have said you should just believe in what makes you comfortable, but I'm not thinking about what I want to believe in. I'm trying to believe in what I think is most likely to be true. And I think that if there is a God, then we, in the same way that a small child, someone talks about not wanting his kids to suffer. And a thing about God is that we see him as being like a father, and a small child doesn't understand the reason that their parents do everything. And so we...
like kill them? Give them cancer?
Well,
take away their lives? It sounds too cruel to me. And if he's looking down on everybody and going, right, you get cancer, you don't get cancer. I've got 3 friends with cancer at the moment. So, you get a flood, you get fire, you get shot by an ice agent. You know, what is he doing up there?
I mean, again, like a small child won't understand, we aren't necessarily going to understand. But for me
I don't want to understand a God like that. I don't want to. I don't want any part of a person or a thing that would just be so cruel.
I think that a lot of people have experienced difficult situations in life and I'm not trying to in any way diminish the severity of what your friends or other people are going through, but a lot of people do experience that hardships in life can lead to them developing understanding of things that they didn't otherwise.
No. Cancer is not a route to religion. Come on, that's God gave them cancer to make them suffer, so they're better people. I'm not buying it. Grace, I love talking to you. I've enjoyed this as well, but I've got to take a break because I'm actually incredibly late. Back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and we are talking religion. I've got a few messages here I want to read before we take the last call of the hour. Mark in Northants says, the reason I'm not religious is that God doesn't believe in me. That's a good point. Lee says, I'm not religious in the slightest, although I do believe we were created, just not in a way that's for us to understand. I believe all religions must be incorrect. If there were an instruction manual, why wasn't it issued from the beginning? We know people existed long before the Torah, the Bible or the Quran. And despite what's preached, all religious texts have had things missed out, altered over time or changed through translation. What was Jesus' actual name again? So how can any of them be divine, or does God make mistakes? Perhaps he's only human after all. It's a very good line, Lee. I like that. I just don't. You can hear that. I just can't square those circles. I can't make sense of it. I just can't make sense of it. I can't. Les is in Cheshire. Hello, Les. Good morning.
Good morning, Petra. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I just can't believe some of your callers on there. Anyway, I'm like you. I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic, you know what I mean? And the thing is, it doesn't matter what religion you believe in, and I'm not knocking it to people who want to believe in a religion. They can spout it all day long.
I agree.
But all religions are based on keeping people into check.
Yeah, it is the patriarchy wanting to control people.
Yeah. So I'm going to refer to Exodus 21:17, and this is what I've always gone back to. Having looked at the Torah, having looked at the Quran, having looked at other religions, but it always comes back to the Bible. And Exodus is the Ten Commandments. And it's, I am the Lord thy God, you shall not have no other God before me.
Yeah, that's the most important one.
Exactly.
Why isn't paedophilia, rape, murder right at the top? In fact, paedophilia is not even mentioned.
Exactly. And the second one, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images.
Yep. Again.
And you've got a cross with Christ on it. You know what I mean? It's an image.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. How many people are saying, oh, Christ, oh, my God.
And that's the top three. It's all about him.
Exactly. And then 4, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Now, the Jewish people do that, but the Christians do not.
I think we used to. Christians used to. I say we. But, I mean, so that's the top 4, right? The top 4 most important commandments are about God himself.
Yeah, but honour thy father and mother. How many times have you swore to your mother and father during your adolescence?
Oh my God, yeah. And actually, he made me that way, if there is a God. So it's his fault.